Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues political and cultural from the silly to the serious. Gang, we've got a show for you tonight, and it's quite, I think, an interesting topic. At least it's interesting to me. Recently, with the rise of Bluesky and the election, a lot of left-leaning people have announced that they are leaving Twitter, that they are moving over to Bluesky. This is pretty similar to the exodus that occurred when you had Truth Social come up, or Gab, or Parler, or any of the other more right-leaning sites. A lot of right-wingers moved to those to kind of silo themselves off. The question for tonight is, one, is Bluesky just an echo chamber for leftists? Is that a good thing? Or is that a bad thing, or is it just kind of a neutral thing? And two, is it dangerous for us as a society, as a culture, to be continuously siloing ourselves off into these kind of social media echo chambers? That's a question for tonight. I know it's kind of deep. I know it's kind of like roundabout, but it's worth talking about, and we're going to discuss it. We're going to start with Gibbs. Gibbs, give us what you got. Give us your thoughts, and then let's get into it.
Yeah, first, I want to start with, I see this as a massive problem. I hate echo chambers. I didn't like it when the right did it, and I don't like it when the left is doing it now. First, I want to say the reason the right left to these groups, like earlier, like Parler and them, originally was for a much different reason than why the left is leaving these platforms now, in my opinion. The right left because they felt like they couldn't talk on the other platforms. They felt like they were being censored. They felt like they had to play by the rules. They felt like all the topics were geared a certain way, and when they spoke out in a way they wanted, they were banned or censored and their voices were shut down. That's a little different than what's happening now. What's happening now is what I like to call pussitis. They're leaving in droves because they got a mad case of bitch assness. They can't handle being told they're wrong, and they want to sit here. They want to get in their little therapy groups and cry about it. I'll even call out people by names. We saw during the election, as the election people come up closer, we saw people like Pisco. Y'all watch Pisco, and some of these other people that are in there join in these little groups and not even be willing to engage in conversations with righties because they had sand in their metaphorical vaginas. And it's really sad. There's nothing worse today than echo chambers, because all it does is it create extremism, and it creates unrealistic ideas that can't be implemented in practice, and I hate them.
Fair enough. Strong out the gate from Gibbs. Katusha, what are your thoughts here?
I kind of have like a multipolar kind of opinion on this. Like, I mean, first and foremost, like the cordoning off and stuff like that, it's you can see it from the angle of it being, bad because people are going into, echo chambers, or like, creating spaces for them or their group. But you can look at it from that way, and I definitely understand it. But then I also see it as kind of like competition in a market. Because the problem that I see is that if nothing's cordoned off at all and there are no alternatives, then we're looking at a monopoly, which I don't think anybody, I mean, I'm going to be a partisan hack and say specifically Elon too, should be having a complete monopoly, right? On like kind of where people talk to express like short form stuff, like text form type things, like tweets or posts or whatever they call it now. And I mean, secondarily, I feel like if we have a problem with echo chambers, our biggest problem isn't as much with the platform as much as it is with algorithms. Because plenty of people who are lefties or whatever have like complete echo chambers on Twitter as it is now, because the algorithm only shows what you want to see for the most part, whether you're right or left on there. So, I mean, I don't think moving to another platform is as much of the issue as the algorithm is.
Okay, thank you, and we will get into it as we go. Next up, first-time guest on my show, Evercore. I think that's how you say your name.
Yes, that's correct. I have a different name on Twitter and Bluesky, Mercenary29, and I'm okay with my first name being used, Corey. It's my first name, Corey, so you can call me Corey. I don't care. I don't think anyone's like, woohoo, I love an echo chamber. I only like hearing ideas that agree with me, because there's many different echo chambers. There could be tanky echo chambers. Everyone just loves the CCP, and liberal echo chambers, and conservative echo chambers, libertarian echo chambers. But I've got some argument in favor of Bluesky, because I think in terms of free market, they've done something even like before the election. Like even before the election, a lot of people were saying, "Man, I wish I had a pre-Elon Twitter-like website." And it took a lot of failed attempts to do that. Mastodon had these weird like server systems, and Threads didn't do that. So I have no problem with people switching, like giving a good chunk of the market what they wanted. And it's kind of, I don't think it's also, I think it's in people's First Amendment right. If they don't want to give money to Elon or attention to Elon, they should be able to do that. For example, like a lot of conservatives didn't like it when Bud Light gave attention to Dylan Mulvaney. Why can't leftists say, man, I don't want to give attention to Elon. Let's go to a different website. I think that's completely a fair business move.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll get into it as we go. Next up, Liberal Cluck, who is just for context, he's a last-minute replacement for someone, so give him some grace. Liberal Cluck, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and echo what Kat said and say that I think the algorithms on these platforms create much more of an echo chamber than like people moving platforms from one to another. Overall, Blue Sky probably is more of a overall left-wing echo chamber, but if MAGA people go onto Blue Sky, they could create their own echo chamber within that, just like liberals can within Twitter. And I do think it's a very big problem. It's the reason why during Black Lives Matter, people believed that thousands of unarmed black men were being shot and killed by police, and it's the reason why people in the 2020 election believed that the election was stolen. Echo chambers allow for those kind of lies and disinformation to spread without challenge.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Next up, Tyler.
What's up, y'all? So I was kind of torn about this. I could go either way, but I think I'm going to lean more toward the Gibbs argument here and it's just the competition aspect as well. So, like, first and foremost, I think the competition was absolutely going back to my time playing World of Warcraft. There were a million WoW killers out there. Every WoW killer Rift, it was going to be WildStar, it was going to be this stupid game that came out this month, and every one of them failed, and this is going to fail as well. Truth Social only had Trump. The whole appeal of Twitter is that you are there with everyone's on an equal footing. You can pay some money, you're a blue check, and now celebrities, and you are eye to eye. And I just feel like this rush away from Twitter as a knee-jerk reaction is kind of just, it goes hand in hand with losing the election and getting butthurt. Give them time to go into their little safe space, let them lick their wounds, let them reformulate their arguments. It's a good thing. You need to have some areas in your life where you're not surrounded by the argument, where you have some comfortable people and you can explore ideas. It's good for them to have that. But at the end of the day, they're going to come crawling right back, just like everybody did for Truth Social. Trump's back on Twitter. That's his platform. They're all coming back. It's not going to work, and Twitter will reign supreme. Long live Elon.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. And last, certainly not least, our friend Joe Lewis. What do you got?
Hey, I'm not exactly convinced that Blue Sky is an echo chamber for the left in any sort of substantive sense. I've been on the platform since it launched, and I think it does have benefits that Twitter can't provide. The question, I think, and the sort of like the long-term thing is that is Blue Sky a sustainable social media platform, period? And I'm not quite sure yet. There's still some kinks that it still has to kind of work through. The content moderation is fantastic. I have no notes there. But generally speaking, when it comes to the look and aesthetic of the platform, it's not exactly appealing to a lot of people. And there's also just the challenge of people going from one platform to another and sort of rebuilding their internet identity. Because a lot of people, for better or worse, have their internet identity attached to whether it be Facebook, Twitter, what have you. So like rebuilding that's going to take some time, even if you are a more famous creator. Because they don't have the same type of grappling with sponsors. There's challenges there. It's nice to know that they're not essentially bought and paid for in that aspect, but that creates challenges because now you're being not counterproductive, but just in the niche of how usually social media platforms are driven on, because they're all bought and paid for by their advertisers, and they kind of drive what's acceptable and not. but I do appreciate that there is some disaggregation with that platform. And I think if people want an alternative for Blue Sky, yeah, it's totally fine. No different than the clubhouses and everything else of the world. I think people crave discourse, and if this allows for some people to participate in that, I think it's totally fine.
Okay, well, with that, I guess the first question I would have, because I've heard mixed opinions on this as we've gone around, is Blue Sky actually an echo chamber for the left? A lot of people, again, after the election, as I said, moved there because they didn't like Twitter for a host of reasons. But does that, in and of itself, make it an echo chamber? What do we think?
I don't think it is, actually. Like, I mean, I've been on there a while. I haven't really, like, I've been more lurking, and like not, as long in the political space there, but in general, it seems like, obviously it's a higher percentage, but to the point where it's like a lefty only zone. People say that, and I think that's kind of ridiculous. Like, there's definitely, like, quite a few decent sized righty communities, some righty people, who have pretty big traction in there. Like, yeah, it's a higher percentage, but it's not like, not like Parler.
Does anyone think it's an echo chamber?
Yeah, it absolutely is echo chamber. I like it. I will agree. Parler was an echo chamber, but it's for a very different reason, right? But like I said, conservatives when they left to Parler, it's because they couldn't like get their say out there. If they said something, it was like, like for example, like I'm not hesitant to even do this now because I still think we can all get cancer. But like when we talked about COVID, there was all sorts of information. It was immediately labeled as misinformation, and boom. You're off to La La Land, you're gone. So they wanted a safe space to talk about that. The left, as should be expected of the participation trophy crowd, when things got going tough on social media platform X, they left fled with its tail tucked between its legs. Sure, maybe people were mad because of the gloating right after the election. However, no platform got more leftists than Blue Sky. Sure, some with the TikTok, some with the Instagram, but Blue Sky is where most of them have gone. It's gotten so bad, in fact, that now they're canceling each other on the platform, which is hilarious to me because nobody hates the left more than the left.
They're on Twitter too.
Exactly.
Well, that always happens. Well, that happens on every platform. Like people.
Well,
like,
righties don't do that to near the extent.
Oh, they absolutely do. What? Come on, that's cope, friend. I'm confused with what you mean by.
He's right. Let's keep it real. Like I'm sure they disagree, but I don't.
Hold on, let's give it to Joe.
Nobody canceled Tommy Lauren because she doesn't like what Trump said. Like everybody, this is like a lie that the left's used.
What does rhino mean?
Hold
on,
what does rhino mean? Sure, because they were rhinos. That was different. Just because you call out a specific.
Okay.
Hold on. Just
they weren't canceled. It was
specific. No. Just because you call out specific bad actors that are acting against the rest of the movement's like policy, that's one thing. There's a difference between, say, like Tommy Lauren, who's not a rhino, who disagreed with a lot of Trump policies, but nobody's called her a rhino. There's totally different things. Like y'all are false equivalency these.
You mentioned that there's lefties canceling each other on Blue Sky. Do you have an example that you can point to that we can use to kind of guide the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, Blue Sky Safety put out a thing right here. It says the past 24 hours, we've received more than 42,000 reports, an all-time high for one day. We're receiving about 3,000 reports an hour. To put that in context, in all of 2023, we received 360K reports. We are triaging this large queue, so most harmful content as of CSA is removed quickly. Blue Sky Safety at Blue Sky app, November 15th, 2024. This is almost a direct correlation to the election.
Gibbs,
I'm going to try to ask that question again because you did not answer it. So
if you didn't understand
I'll ask it again. You mentioned Tommy Lahren in your example of like cancel culture on the right, whatever.
I thought we were talking about the platform being
right, but no, I'm asking you specifically about the platform. You're saying left on left cancellation, and are there particular accounts that you're pointing to that you're seeing?
Talking about it's already leftist. Like, are you saying Blue Sky doesn't have a bunch of lefties that has gained a bunch of lefties since the election? Is that what you're saying?
Please just answer my question.
You ignored my answer.
What does cancellation mean?
I'm not ignoring your answer. I'm not hearing what you're.
I'm asking for definition. What do you mean by cancellation? What do you mean by leftist?
I mean, whatever you see in 24 hours, they're reporting after the election, which we know a large amount of leftists moved over there, and then we immediately
people breaking TOS.
And then we immediately see an increase of 42,000 reports for all time.
Wow, really? When a lot of people join a platform, people are shitty.
360K reports in the whole last year. Yeah, it's because it's all the lefties are sitting there reporting each other.
You have no way. The issue here is that. You
I
have
hope
no
they're
way. You
reporting
have no
each
way
other.
of
What the
proving.
fuck?
You have no way of proving that.
I proved it. I said it. We already know they moved there. You're just sitting here denying reality.
You have
That's
no way of
okay.
proving that these are
Reporting
ideologically leftist
they're not
accounts. That they're.
okay.
Can
You have no way.
Reporting
You have
is
no
just-
way of
it's
proving
just
that
a
unless you
coincidence
can.
It's just a coincidence they all moved there, and the numbers
No,
flew up into the
like-
hundreds of
Reporting
thousands.
somebody for
That's what it
posting
is. Just a
CSAM is not
coincidence.
canceling them.
Total
That's
coincidence.
reporting
You're
them for
right.
being a piece of shit and also
You have
breaking
I'll
TOS.
drive it in here. You have
Gibbs.
cancellation numbers, like ban numbers from Blue Sky. Like how many were banned and someone who was banned.
Okay.
indefinitely. For example, Andrew Tate was banned the second he joined Blue Sky. Do you think that was unfair? I guess some people are like, no, Andrew Tate was banned the second he joined Blue Sky. I really don't care
Okay.
about that, honestly. He probably said something annoying, and you can say he's a criminal in Romania. But do you think that's unfair that he should have had a side in Blue Sky, or he didn't say anything? Can you think of someone who was like banned unfairly on Blue Sky, in your opinion?
No.
Like a single person, like.
No.
And for example, I think there's different moderation rules too, because
Yes.
if Blue Sky says Holocaust denial is banned on Blue Sky, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, fine, okay, good. But if someone says, if anyone says they like Donald Trump in any way, they're banned on Blue Sky, I'd be like, okay, that's stupid.
Yeah.
So there's different rules of moderation. I'd be okay with Holocaust denial being banned, but I think it'd be dumb if like someone just had MAGA in their profile or just said they like something Trump did and they were instantly banned. That would be like way over the top. Different rules for moderation.
Sure. Are you saying that? I'm trying to understand what you're saying here. Are you trying to say that Blue Sky has specific moderation rules where certain explicit speech is prohibited, or
Well,
are you saying that there's people getting proactively banned from that platform before they even post any content? I'm trying to understand like where you're at in your thought here.
Well, he was saying, like, Gibbs was saying, like, look at all these reports. Look at all these reports. And I said, can you think of someone who was unjustly banned? And I gave a report, maybe Andrew Tate was banned the second he joined Blue Sky, right?
Yes.
And I don't really care about that. I don't know the story. Maybe it's because he's a criminal. Maybe he said something, tried to troll people immediately. I think there's also rules of moderation. For example, I would be against people banning, like, Trump supporters immediately. I would say that's a stupid rule. If they really were banning, that'd be an echo chamber. But if Blue Sky said, we're not letting Holocaust denial, we're letting, like, the 6 million Jews jokes, they banned them immediately.
Just to test
I'd be like,
your,
that's-
hold on, if I may, just Evercourt, just to test kind of what you mean here, or where your limit is, I guess would be a better question. Say someone came on Blue Sky and started being an anti-vaxxer, basically giving misinformation, disinformation
Which they were,
about
but yeah.
vaccines. Do you think that should be allowed on Blue Sky?
This is me personally. This is my personal limit.
Yeah, I'm
I think
asking
if
you.
someone says,
you
I don't
personally.
like vaccines, that's not an instant ban for me.
No, they
If
say
someone
it
said,
doesn't
like,
work. It's never worked, and if you get vaccines, your children will die.
if they had on their feed, I don't think I'd ban them. But if they're going to, like, some people, like, let's say there's a report and someone says, I got my kid vaxxed, and they went to the replies to that person and was like, you damaged your kid, you hurt your kid.
You would
I
be okay
think
with
that'd
that
be
being
fair for ban. That's my personal line.
Sure.
But I'm not in charge of Blue Sky. So if someone said it on their personal feed, I don't think I'd ban them. But if someone went over to people who were vaccinating their kids and tried to, like, harass them about it, I would ban them.
So the reason why Gibbs brought up the higher numbers of people being reported wasn't because he thinks that somebody's been unfairly reported. It was because he was using that to try to prove a point about lefties canceling lefties, which I don't think proves his point because, like,
Thank
if there's more people on the platform, there's going to be more reports. Like, unless you can like prove that it's been disproportionately more reports since there's been more lefties, then maybe you can make a correlative argument there. But even that's still just correlation.
Even
Anyways.
if, and just a question to kind of drive the conversation, maybe down a more productive track. Even if it does turn out that Blue Sky has predominantly left-leaning influencers, predominantly left-leaning users, and predominantly left-leaning opinions, why is that bad? Why is that wrong? Why is that wrong?
I don't see a
at all?
problem.
Can I
with
jump
it.
in and get on the initial question first about it even being an echo chamber in the first place?
Sure, yeah.
All right, so I wouldn't judge this. Again, I think Gibbs maybe overstated what the data he's presenting says, but I don't think anyone's questioning the mass exodus from Twitter against Elon is people predominantly of the left wing. So we do see mostly that. It could also be the ban rates, could also be trolls going over. Anyways, going into that, a lot of this has been documented. I've been just reading through Twitter feeds of people going to Blue Sky. Now, this is predominantly a left-wing view. I'm not trying to get into the merits of this argument, but the gender identity argument is something believed by the left wing. It's a left-wing cause. 60% of people in polling say that gender is whatever at birth, and they don't believe it.
For the sake of the conversation, can you explain what you mean when you say that?
Yeah.
Relevant.
Well, just
For those who are watching.
The idea that gender is something that is a social construct that could be altered is primarily a left-wing cause. And a right-wing version of that or alternative to that argument is there's two genders. Gender is the same thing as sex. So I'm looking at multiple instances, and again, these are anecdotal, these are grains of sand, there's no study to prove it, but people just saying there are two genders is getting them banned from this platform, when that is predominantly a left-wing belief system, belief set. Now, that could just be how the system is being run. It could be an anti-discrimination thing. But just the fact that that is going on and conservatives are being banned for pushing a view that's accepted by 60% of Americans alone, to me, tells it the moderation is making it somewhat of a left-wing echo chamber.
I would say that...
I think, how are they saying it? Like, are they just posting on their feed, or are people spam posting it on people's, like, tweets or whatever on there?
One person said they made one post that said there are two genders, and they got banned.
Right, but I think Katyusha is bringing up something.
Well, there was your example
where...
earlier that you're asking for right there. There's your anecdotal example.
Let Joe finish his thought. Let Joe. I'm curious where Joe's going with this.
I'm kind of wondering.
Give it to Joe.
I think Katyusha is kind of bringing up the point of there's people who are engaging in the platform for general discourse and discussion, and then there are those who, for whatever reason they want, are testing either the algorithms and testing the content moderation, or just blatantly and they can test it a bunch of different ways, right? They can test it in a way of just like, hey, let me just say nigga and see what happens. Let me just say retarded and see what happens. Let me say there's only two genders. Amber Rose is white. Doja Cat is a Nazi, and see just like, okay, how does it engage with that? But I think those type of people, the people who say overtly provocative things as like their first initial engagement to the platform, I would argue are just kind of experimenting to see what type of traction is going to happen with those things. I think it's just doing that for the sake of just riling up people to rile up people, or at least trying to. And I think that if you were in a moderation team, that, yeah, I think you are creating yourself to be a target if you're just typing there are only two genders in just like the void of nothing without being like attached to anything, especially in the early stages of a platform's development.
So real quick,
But it also depends on like who's engaging with that
trolls.
thing.
I want to read some posts on Bluesky right now. This one's from 14 hours ago. Weak liberals need to understand that there are only two genders, dry boy and oily boy. There are only two genders, changed my mind 23 hours ago. There are only two genders, 23 hours ago. By the way, there are only two genders, 22 hours ago. Maybe they're just not catching these, but I have a feeling that the people that are getting banned are doing more than just saying on their feed there are only two genders.
Well, what's interesting about that is I also now have a block list. They list on Bluesky the most blocked users by people, which is interesting to me because a friend of Wick's channel right here is #1 blocked person on Bluesky. I think she's a lovely individual personally, but I guess these other people don't like her. Like, this is a prime example of left.
It's I know this because I saw this. Brianna Wu is the #1 blocked person.
Yeah, so there's your example.
But she's on my show quite a bit, and I think that's funny.
Bree's got a lot of haters on the right and left. So
Can you
before the left hating
before Gibbs talks for about 20 minutes, can you
I'm already done.
Can you link whatever he's talking about in the group chat?
I put it in the group chat. You're welcome. I way ahead of you because I knew that was coming.
I think Joe Lewis just hit on the most obvious, like probably the most realistic of what's going on here. We have a young, fresh algorithm that isn't, because if you're able to go on there right now and see posts that other people are getting banned for, I'm maybe thinking it's the algorithm trying to figure it out, parse out, like maybe people are spam, because it was End Wokeness that did this. So maybe like they saw End Wokeness came over, let's make a campaign to spam report this guy, and that's why he got banned. So there is probably some of that going on too, absolutely.
I think there's only 20 full-time Bluesky employees, so there probably is like an algorithm.
Well,
figured out.
we gotta remember too that we can if I remember, I'll post it later. Like they talk about how they do content moderation, and the whole thing with their platform is that it's decentralized. So because there aren't ads that are driving potential content moderation, they run a disaggregated distributive model where there's different groups that are responsible for different types of moderation. Now, I would have to look into the document to see exactly what that looks like practically, but that's a different type of content moderation. So yeah, if you have a bunch of people who are disaggregated dealing with different content, it's not going directly to one individual. It's getting distributed to a bunch of different organizations and groups in real time. So yeah, if there's an influx of new people onto a platform, they're probably going to be agitated for at least a couple. Like the growth of the platform, I would imagine, would lead to the growth of people filing complaints. And real quick, with the Imgur post, I thought there was like something that Bluesky like actively posted, like people who are commonly blocked accounts, but this, I don't know what this picture is trying to say.
I'll explain it.
Can you help me?
So there are they keep track of who is blocked on their platform. So when you block someone on their platform, it keeps track of it. And that is a list of the people who have achieved the most blocks from people.
Yeah, and Gibbs is using that as an example of left violence.
Well,
Gotcha. So you're referring to.
I also
So I
posted
see-
new research, by the way, that proves conservatives are much less likely to want free speech stopped in any form. They want it. All the people
We'll get
to
into
like
that.
say whatever.
We'll get into that as soon as we get.
Okay.
We got it.
So
one at a time.
So just
one thing at a
just
time,
for clarity, just for clarity's sake, so we don't accidentally like spread bullshit. It seems like there's a website called clearsky.app that I'm assuming is tracking the back end of certain things like blocked users, blocked words, etc. And yeah, like it shows that Brianna Wu's on the top. But then when we
I don't know who
disaggregate
the
it
other
down,
people, by the way, right? Like,
yeah, I don't know who
none
any of these other
people, I have
accounts
no
are.
idea. Yeah.
Taylor Swift is here. TaylorSwift.com/BR.
Not Tay Tay.
Twitter.bluesky.social. So I don't know, like, unless Brianna Wu's not a leftist. She's more of like I would imagine she's more of just like
not a leftist.
Yeah, she's pretty much a pretty establishment Democrat. If anything, I would say she's more of a corporatist. Corporatism is left?
Yeah, bro.
Corporate Democrats are left? News to me, dog.
Yeah,
News to me.
Are you retarded? Like, if you're left of center, you're left. I'm sorry, bro.
Corporate Democrats are left? That's my question I'm asking you.
Yeah, they absolutely are left. They are left.
Corporate Democrats are leftist. Okay, corporate Democrats are leftist.
I'm going to. We're not here to debate what is left and what is right.
We're talking about.
Just to carry back on the topic is the effect of social media on discourse as well as on our opinions and whether or not Bluesky is going to contribute to the further siloing of individuals into their little preferred bubbles, right? And that's what we're here to talk about.
Sure, we already go for it, friend.
Maybe, but each of these positions, like if you look right now, you got TikTok debaters now entering the Twitch and Twitter debate space. You're going to get champions that rise up from these spaces and come out to battle. We might have like a pseudo corporate sponsorship thing going on in the near future, like Twitter's top 10 best and like versus Twitch's top 3, you know, like I could see these. Because we have these segmented areas, we can have more competition within these areas. Lots of, I wouldn't say small ponds, they're all big ponds, but you got several big oceans where you got lots of big fish poking their head up. You could even make a league out of it. And I feel like the amount of political discourse that goes on in my life since I joined this debate space, it's fantastic. I love it. Shows like this bring it to the mainstream. People are interested in watching. I'm making a 2-hour-long video talking about fucking executive policy and things like that because it just raises the bar of what we're talking about online. It's absolutely fantastic. We're doing it. Society is 100% better off because of it.
You know, like 20 years ago, there was, before like social media got really big, like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook really increased. A lot of politics were just with blogs, right-wing blogs, left-wing blogs, like Red State, Think Progress on the Red State on the right, Think Progress on the left, Daily Coast on the left. So and trust me, those blogs, if you went on them, were probably much more cancel happy than the big social media sites. If you were like the one conservative on Daily Kos or the one liberal on Red State, you would get like thumbs down. So it's kind of funny, like 20 years ago, before people probably had the term cancel culture, you can argue that things were even more fragmented. There was like people almost exclusively talked most of their politics through heavily organized partisan sources, or even attempting to argue on YouTube or Twitter. So I don't think like one site that maybe says, "Oh, I want to do things less like the way Elon does," will make everyone fragmented. Because I can make an argument like 20 years ago, pre-social media getting as big as it was, and the few who won out, people were even more fragmented.
Right. I think that over time, there's going to be different reasons why people if Blue Sky continues to grow and survives and stuff, my bet is there's eventually going to be like more people who are on the center, even on the right, who join it. Maybe just for a platform, but also because there are like technical issues, with Twitter that people can go from. Like a lot of people are made antsy by the AI stuff. A lot of people, don't like the number of bots on Twitter. And like the number of spam posts, ads, like weird ads too. And they just, kind of want it to be kind of like the way Twitter used to be, 5-10 years ago, which Blue Sky is more similar to that. So I feel like the whole, like echo chamber or the, lefty lean or whatever we're talking about would probably, unless the platform like goes under, it'll probably, become more even over time.
Wait, what do you mean by like it went like 10 years ago? Do you mean when it was just a leftist stronghold, Twitter? Because that's what it is.
Talking about politics.
Like what it was.
I'm talking about so 10 years ago there wasn't the bot problem. 10 years ago there wasn't the weird AI stuff. 10 years ago there wasn't as many strange ads and the number of them that was on there. It was kind of more simple to use. Like that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it
here.
was a smaller, more niche website. Like Twitter didn't have the same type of corporate stranglehold like it does now. It was just like a thing that existed in tandem with all these other applications. Like Twitter emerging as a larger social media platform is a new occurrence, like in the past 4 to 5 years.
This is cope. This is
What
cope.
what
This is
is
bullshit.
what am I
Like,
what am I coping
This
about?
is bullshit. Like, all
You wanna
right,
explain it to me?
Yeah, I will explain it to
What
you.
am I coping about?
If I'm allowed to talk this time, because I know y'all, you hate it when I talk,
You
But
just
hey,
talk
listen,
long.
listen,
That's
Josuke,
all.
I don't want to hear about how I look like I'm sitting here talking a long time. Just like I don't. You talk for 30 minutes every time and then bitch about my talking. All right. So now down to the point. It's pretty clear.
For the
that
record, you started talking at 6:33 p.m.
bro, I
Have fun.
literally have a timer on you. Every time you talk, you are actually talking
Okay,
3 minutes for me so far. Like,
you
this is really
spent a
nitpicky
minute
bullshit.
talking about how much
Yeah,
each
I
other
know.
talks. Let's
Yeah, it's
get to the
crazy.
point.
Yeah, the point is real simple. It's real simple. Back in the day, I remember when I was doing Halo tournaments and Halo running for HCS and announcing, Twitter was dying. You still see them put up the thing in there. This is like 2015. It was dying. You'd see people put their thing up there and get no gain. Like the numbers were dropping off. And then suddenly the argument is now, oh, it's so big. It's this national relevance. The only thing that kept Twitter relevant was like when it got controversial and started banning big names like Trump and others and that. And then Elon came in. Elon's made the platform relevant again. Like it's the idea that Twitter was this super powerful thing up until election season is total bullshit. And
Hold
code.
on.
Like
We can do
Gibbs.
haters make you famous all
Hold
day.
on.
but
Like,
I
just
was talking
to-
about technical issues.
Go for it, Wick. Have fun.
Just so
Twitter
we
numbers have been down
understand
for
here,
years.
right? Like Twitter, even back in 2014, 2015-esque era, right? Even though it was smaller, the whole reason that people pay attention and care about Twitter is because the media, such as CNN, journalists, etc., care about Twitter, and they're all on Twitter. It's not how many people you have, it's who you have and what kind of mouthpieces that they have. We can look at Gamergate. That was largely a Twitter phenomenon. That was boosted by Twitter. That was led by Twitter in many ways, right? And that had huge consequences, real world, right? So this idea that like Elon made Twitter relevant is just not true. Elon
He definitely
bought
has.
Twitter because he believed
was
It was
irrelevant
Twitter.
because it
was
No.
the
He
most
bought
relevant
it
thing.
because it was. Sorry, Wick. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Like Twitter used to be a place where people generally would converge during large events and large instances. So for a lot of times that would be like Twitter would be the driving thing for like a football game, like the Super Bowl, for instance, or WWE, especially WWE and NXT. And then after these events ended, it would just kind of like disperse. And then when the next sort of cultural thing occurred, influx of people engaging with it, and then drop off. It was kind of doing that for a considerable amount of time. I think what people started realizing, and Elon to an extent, is that Twitter can be something that can drive revenue and profits. I'm not exactly convinced he cares about speech. Not yet, at least. I think he's probably, just like every other oligarch, is just concerned about making sure that his portfolios are very like full and profitable, and that he can drive his influence in a bunch of different areas. I say that to say that, yeah, I think Twitter is at its best when there is engagement and interaction in sort of like the lighter aspects of culture. But now, since we're in a more emergent environment where people are more openly talking about politics online, we're still kind of in those growing pains. And I think like people talking actively politically online is much newer than Twitter.
Right, and a lot of why Twitter, he says that like Twitter was on the decline and then it popped back up. It wasn't just due to political stuff or due to controversy. One thing that I can cite that did result in a lot of people, trickling into Twitter was in, I believe it was 2018, when I know it's not a site that I'm sure most of y'all use, but a bunch of people, shit ton of people use it now, way more using it in the past, when Tumblr banned adult content. Because Twitter was like the place that people gravitated to after that.
Not wrong.
Look,
Well,
I have thoughts on Tumblr.
It's a bit more and then like what sucks about that is all these content creators are just really smart about it, where they filter it into other areas. Like Instagram is rough right now, but it's a fantastic place if you are somebody who's trying to drive that particular type of content. But at the same time, no different than any other platform, like you can have a really popular, we'll just say, OF account on Instagram, and that you use that to filter people to go to your OnlyFans and what have you. But you could get hit from content moderation at any point, and they know that walking in. So you can have like a million follower account just yeeted by Meta just because Meta decides to look at it through its algorithm on X or Y day. And I think that's way bigger of a problem than whatever's going on Twitter, as an example.
Really? So a lot of leftists, right, have left Twitter because they feel like Elon is stifling their speech and promoting specifically right-wing content. So one of the complaints I'll hear a lot is that if you take a brand new account and you just log on to Twitter, you will be fed right-wing content. That is the claim that they are making. Do we feel
possible.
that this is, does not just you, but anyone here, is there merit to this? And what are our thoughts? Go ahead.
Well, it depends, because what is deemed left-wing and right-wing nowadays is wild to me, where I see people getting with traditional left-wing views getting smeared as far right because they just don't think Trump's a fascist. So right. I doubt that has as much merit to it. I think that you'd want a more fair-minded person that understands left-wing and right-wing are both huge tents that have a bunch of different groups under them. And maybe you can be for, U.S. hegemony and still be left-wing, things like capitalist and still be left-wing, which you hear on Twitter all the time, that if you are for those things, you're technically a right-winger. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, which is lunacy and idiocracy, by the way.
Okay, isn't there a study?
What people are talking about is more like cultural stuff, and they're talking about, for example, that people get they get notifications for Elon's post, or they get Elon's posts on their feed when they do not follow him, do not want to, and never have interacted with him in their lives.
Have him blocked and muted and still getting his shit. Like,
yeah, that even happened. They even happened like for some just random accounts that I had blocked. Like there was God, who was it? Doja Cat. She was like randomly horny posting for like 2 days in a row, and I just muted it and blocked it, and it still showed up in my For You. I'm like, how's that possible? Like,
But
the
was it-
I'm
fuck?
gonna go
Wasn't
follow
there
her
a-
right now.
Wasn't there a study done that proved that like most social media algorithms push right wing content? This was like done
Yeah,
before
I think
2020.
yeah, there was one, I forget the woman's name. It was like a team of like 3 or 4 people who did it. If I remember, I'll post it in the aftermath. Like, I think there's something to say about like I did an experiment that I'm still working on a video essay on, where I just I made a brand new YouTube account and I just hit auto and I just let it play videos. And something that was really interesting is that it just started filtering into to your point, liberal cluck, is that like it just started filtering into just like actual right wing content, like categorically right wing,
Well,
freedom, liberty,
I think one thing about I think one
all
thing
that
about
nonsense.
I think one thing about conservative content is it's sensational, and even with like
Yeah.
mainstream media, sensation sells, and that's
Hold
probably
on,
more likely why.
liberal clock.
Yes.
Okay. Do you guys remember 2016, 2017 era, the resistance? Like the lib resistance?
Resist libs,
where,
yeah.
resist libs, right? Where
Mhm.
everything that happened was, this is huge! And they would make a big scene out of it. Like, they would create this kind of sensation about it. So to say that right-wing stuff is sensational, maybe so, but it is no different, at least when it comes to the sensationalness of it,
I'll
than
give
a
an
lot of
example
left-wing
direct bias.
content.
I'll give
Come
an
on.
example of direct bias, right? 'Cause
Wait, hold
you
on.
talk about Elon himself. He talks about his like. I think he's biased towards people he likes. Like a big one was like the guy Dom Lucre, the conspiracy guy.
The
Randomly
one who
put, like-
posted child pornography on Twitter.
Yeah.
him?
He said it was, this is a bad thing, but come on, no leftist would get that benefit of the doubt if Elon didn't like him. He was banned for a bit. He had apologized. He's back. A leftist or people in the center or someone apolitical said, "Here's real child porn, but I'm saying it's bad," and he was let back in. So, I mean, like that's probably biased because Elon just likes him in particular. So maybe I think Elon's right wing guy, likes Trump. But it's more seen like Elon's friends to people he likes personally. Like the accounts he likes personally, he'll whitelist them, he'll promote them. And like I said, I don't think if you're a Dem who's like, man, I don't want to give business to Trump's top donor, I don't think it's a crazy thing to move away from X. I think it's a fair move as you rise a consumer in a capitalist system.
I think so. I want to address Wick when he was talking about the left sensationalizing the news. I think that like news doesn't get covered unless it's sensational, and
Sure.
and I think that did lead the media to try and sensationalize things that may not have been so sensational. But like if you look at like the overall media sphere in the recent years, it's been completely driven by the right. Because while Kamala Harris, I see Gibbs up there, Kamala Harris sitting there talking about how she's going to give free daycare and elderly care, while Trump is talking about Haitians eating cats and dogs. Which one's going to dominate the news cycle? It's
Bro,
the cats and dogs.
they called. It's just in the last month. They called the Trump rally at Times Square. Not Times. Yeah, no, Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square
They
Garden.
compared it, and I quote, to a Nazi rally at a previous building called Madison Square Garden. It wasn't even the same building. They called it a 1939 Nazi rally, and they echoed it, and they played literal clips of Nazis walking down into the front. Don't tell me that the right is the only ones sensational and shit when they're calling people literally Hitler. I don't think you can get anything more sensational than showing a modern clip, putting a Hitler clip next to it, or putting a modern clip and then showing the SS walking down the aisle.
Do y'all know what
We're
do
joking
y'all know?
about it
Wait,
being
wait,
like a Nazi rally too.
Do
It was
y'all
not
know
a
what the
joke.
word? Hold on. Do y'all know what the word sensational means?
True. Right
Do we
wingers
know-
legitimately.
So wait,
but
sensational
you're
doesn't mean false.
explaining the thing.
Yeah, like
Gibbs
yeah.
just explained the thing, and it's like, well, actually, what they did, like, yeah, they compared the Trump rally at the Madison Square Garden. The first time I think a president has ever done a rally at the Garden. And they compared that.
Well, this guy has no history. Bill Clinton, George Bush, they all did rallies at the Garden. So
That's
Madison
right.
Square
But what I'm
Garden?
saying, all right. So that rally,
People were
that rally.
comparing the rhetoric, like with the mass
So
deportation
two presidents.
stuff.
They didn't do it then. This is code. This is lies. This is lies.
Oh my goodness gracious!
And stupidity. If you didn't even know that they had two other rallies.
I didn't even get to finish my point, but
Well,
Gibbs
you didn't
likes
even
to
know
do
that.
How is
that.
that wrong? Please inform me.
Okay, so what Cluck said is that it's the right wing has controlled the media sphere. The media was a surrogate for Kamala Harris during her campaign, basically. They don't control the media sphere if you get 95% negative coverage from the media. You're just saying it's sensational. They're reporting it as he's the bad guy. He's evil.
Actually, no, I
he's
feel
bad.
like that's a lot of why Donald Trump won in 2016 was because all day and night it was, oh my God, Trump said this crazy shit. Oh my God, Trump said this awful crap. And he got coverage for free.
Yeah,
so, I mean, yeah.
It's the what is it? Even bad news is good for you. Or there's some saying, but I want
famous.
I want to address
all publicity
Gibbs.
is good publicity.
I want to address
That's
Gibbs, like the media comparing the Madison Square Garden rally to the Nazi rally. That rally was probably like an otherwise pretty tame rally, correct?
What the Trump rally was a pretty tame
At the
On the
rally.
rally in 1938.
Oh,
at
you're
the
talking about the
Madison-
1939 rally,
like-
38 rally.
No,
Yeah,
no.
which one?
The Trump
38,
rally,
by the way.
like there was probably nothing else sensational about it,
Yeah.
but the Madison
Like,
Square
There
Garden.
Trump rally,
was.
The
It was a
comedian.
bit more wild
Yeah,
than
the
their
comedian
usual.
guy was kind of sensational, but yeah.
The rally was out of this world.
Is there a
I mean,
guy who
I-
said
I-
something like
Yeah.
watermelons or pumpkins for black people or something?
I mean, I
feel
think
like
objectively tame is a fair word. Sorry.
objectively
Okay.
tame.
I'm getting mixed messages. I didn't actually
Oh,
watch the
Lord.
rally, so I can't make the point.
I watched the entire thing, and I can say that, like, it's just what you expect from Trump rallies. Like, it didn't surprise me anything new, but I think, again, the point that, like, the connection that they're trying to make was, hey, remember the last time that somebody that was kind of fascist adjacent had a rally in the
There you go.
Garden?
There's sensationalism right there, calling him fascist adjacent.
That is false. There's literally nothing equating Trump to fascism. It's a
hilarious.
complete smear.
We could have a debate about that. That'd be
No,
fun.
so that's a different that's a different debate. That's a different debate I'd love to have. Like but again, like it's not
I mean,
really
take your word
engaging.
for it. You didn't even know that these other presidents giving speech there, but your word is worth it.
I never made the claim. I never made the affirmative that they did. I said I think. That's why I said I think.
We thought
Like-
wrong.
Don't
So you're wrong
get
on
it.
this
Don't
one.
you think that's
Okay,
a little
you thought
bit
it was in
fallacious?
1939,
Somebody said
so-
one thing
Well,
that's
I was a
wrong
year off. There's no
means
difference
that
between a year off.
everything
Oh,
else throw it out
God.
the window.
The
I
media using the location to try and call Trump a Nazi was very stupid. It was sensationalizing a story
Thank
that
you.
probably otherwise wasn't sensational.
Thank
And
you.
that is my
Yeah, one
point. That is
one
my
here.
point.
There you go.
The
Great.
media, including social media, tries to tend towards sensationalism. It causes the media to do stupid shit, like covered the Madison Square Garden as a Nazi rally. It also causes stupid ass shit, like Trump going onto a debate stage saying Haitians are eating cats and dogs. That's how this happens, and it's toxic and it needs to stop. Anyways,
Right.
that's my
I
spew.
think that one of the big things that social media does that I feel like harms the discourse is basically that the most shocking stuff gets reposted 87 quadrillion times and the algorithm picks it up, which happens with individual videos that people take as well. That's why you get stuff like you get people thinking that, if you set foot in New York City, you're going to get murdered in the first 10 seconds when like that's literally not the case. But
Isn't
people are
JD
like, oh, I saw this video, I saw that video, this person, this post.
Well, I
blah,
mean,
blah,
it's like
blah,
the
blah,
same. It's the rhetoric that even folks like. I mean, not to target him in any way, but it's like the same type of like rhetoric that Gibbs would use from time to time, where we'd have like debates and conversations where he'd be like overtly charged on something, and then you push him and be like, "It's not necessarily the case." And it's like, "Well, no, I saw this thing on this website," and then like at the end of the day,
Too.
what's that, friend?
It's the same rhetoric that drove Black Lives Matter riots too. People were thinking that thousands of unarmed black men a year were getting shot, and it just
Sure.
wasn't true.
Right, that
JD
happens with a
Vance,
lot of
right.
things.
But I think something that's important to all of this, and you're alluding to this a little bit, liberal clock, is that these movements, whatever the case might be, let's say like libertarians when it comes to parental rights and the Mama Bear movement, all the way to BLM and different types of Black advocacy organizations. Once their message gets to the mainstream, they usually no longer have control over it. So basically, whatever news media syndicate decides to paint them in extra bright light, then that's kind of how it is. And the same thing happens on Twitter, which I think frustrates a lot of people, where you'll get somebody who will post a thing. This happened the other day with Ethan Klein, not to run defense for a Zionist like that, but they were saying like, oh, like let's listen to him compare Muslim women to dogs and stuff. And they look at the clip and it's like, yeah, it's a little yikesy, but it's not exactly the actual like claim that's being charged in the header itself. But then people know that's what drives clicks and content. So you can have something be really charged and then have them say something a little bit that's pretty mild, and then it just takes a little bit of agitation for it to just drive in the algorithm, and then it's pushed up for whatever reason.
Politicians know that. I was trying to make the point that, like, JD Vance in the outright said, well, the eating dogs thing for the Haitians, eating cats thing actually helped at least drive the message home with the problems of immigration. So they couldn't find like an exact time of a Haitian. I think they found someone like hunting a geese.
They never found anything. It was unverified rumors. It was completely irresponsible for them to repeat that.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think Vance even said something like it helped with immigration. It helped with this point, like, oh, it drove the conversation, right?
Yeah, Vance said it calls people's attention to an issue that affects Americans or whatever. Like, that's kind of along the lines of what he said, yeah.
I had a squirrel once.
If you agree with that, like if you agree with Vance's logic, I don't really know how you can ever call a politician for lying if they have like some move. Like, is it fair to say, like, I can just say, oh, this black man was murdered when he wasn't, or maybe the police were more unjustified than they were? Because I can argue, and historically there was times black people have been oppressed by the police, so that I can say that drives my conversation. Once you get that point, what's even the problem with lying?
I mean, I agree with his logic. I just think it's deplorable and immoral. But I mean, he's right. He did call attention to that subject, even if it was, negative reporting that the Trump campaign was lying. It still reminded people that there's a problem with immigration.
I do want to reset the convo just a smidge, right? I mean, I enjoy the back and forth, right? And I enjoy the threads we're pulling on, but I think we're losing track.
Apparently, you need to get on that poll too, Wick. Somebody said they threw $100 bill at you and you didn't dance.
Look,
so I mean,
if we're gonna address that, he's welcome to come on my show next week. We can do it Tuesday. I'm not we had
the poll or the conversation.
A conversation. He wanted to have a conversation with me. He gave me money. Then he said he wanted a conversation, and I was like, fine. And we scheduled a day. He said he had to cancel that day. That's fair. We scheduled another day. I had to cancel. I had a few things come up. Again, you want to do it Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern? That's when I'm available. Come on by.
What does he want to talk about?
I'd have to look I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I'd have to check.
Damn, people be giving you money for things and you don't even know why? That's crazy. I'm just kidding.
It is what it is. Kidding. But to reset the conversation just a smidge, let's Bluesky, Twitter, social media in general. Do you think that it's a lot of people have said this, that it's just killing society? What do we think about that? Do we think that social media is simply driving us further and further apart in a way that just is unsustainable as a country?
Yes.
I think the algorithm is specifically.
The algorithm specifically, but even things like on YouTube. So like the algorithms. Well, first of all, what do you mean when you say the algorithm?
I mean specifically algorithms that are basically because it keeps people on longer. Pushes people into stronger and stronger echo chambers, to which the only thing that they see, from the other side of their opinions is like rage bait stuff. Because, I mean, those are the two things that do keep you kind of on a platform longest, when you're hearing from people you agree with and then you're seeing stuff that you're angry at. So it makes sense from a business perspective, but it's putting people basically in a situation where they're not living in reality. Right. And you have fewer and fewer opportunities for people to, kind of touch grass, especially the younger generations. and basically you're getting people who are not living in real life.
Well, it's the
Actually-
extension of. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
Evercore,
No,
go
thank you,
ahead,
thank you.
please.
It's the extension of. I think the most provable statistic is depression among young people. That seems to be the thing that's almost
Self-harm
provably
among
free from-
women, young women especially.
Yeah,
and with the rise of
that's if you
social
want
media,
a
the
hardcore
rise in
statistic.
self-harm just
That's
went.
not just therapist look says kids and they're. I think, like you said, young woman self-harm, but just I think 16-year-olds now are just much less unhappy than they were in the 70s and 80s, even in times when the economy was bad. So you can't just blame one unique economy. It's across not just one country either against the Western world. But I also think social media is kind of just taking the trends that started in regular media, just amplified them. William Randolph Hearst in the 30s, he invented the term it bleeds, it leads, or had the philosophy put the negative news top of the newspaper, right, in the 20s and 30s. And then in the 90s, you had 24-hour news that can do that more all the time, but you had to watch TV channel. And now a lot of times people have it bleeds, it leads directly into your screen. It maybe it's good in a way to acknowledge the world, but a teenager in the 60s, 70s, in the 40s had no idea about a war going on across the entire world. Or
I get what you're
happening.
I get what you're
Might know.
saying. I get what you're saying about it's always been with us, but I think that intensity matters, right?
No, I agree. It amplified it. Made
yes,
the trend that.
But it's like the difference between a trickle and a
Mhm.
flood, right? It's all water at the end of the day, but one is insanely devastating, while the other is just water, right? I think that for me at least, one of the things that I'm concerned about, that I fear, is that this constant drive to have us afraid and angry, to be constantly afraid and constantly angry, whether it be angry about left-wing stuff, right-wing stuff, culture stuff, political stuff. We're constantly driven to be upset and angry, and I think that it's deeply, deeply unhealthy for us, and it's making deeply, deeply unhealthy society, a deeply, deeply unhealthy society.
Both Gibbs and I want to jump in here because I want to go after all you right-wing reactionaries that want
then
to battle
Gibbs, after
against
you, yeah.
technology. You want to battle against technology and an advancement of human society because of a few fears that you have of the scary machines. It's just as dumb as union members going into a factory and beating up machines because they didn't want to lose their job. There's no going back. This is what we have now. There's no, it's 100% better. The fact that I can go online and type into Google a question that my grandma would have told me her fucking wives' tale for when I was a kid. The fact that we now have all these facts at our fingertips, the fact that I can
now you get a wife tale from whatever website you pick.
Well, I don't like social
Right.
media to be banned. I don't
Yeah.
want it banned. I don't want it. I don't want it banned. Maybe I agree with Australia. You have to wait till 16. I don't want all these social media websites shut down. I don't want that to happen.
I think that we can
no.
recognize the problems of this technology without wanting to get rid of it completely.
Absolutely, there are some problems. I'm not saying
Right.
there's not 16-year-old girls going out and seeing airbrushed supermodels in a magazine was bad, and now it's 100 times amplified because they're going right into their phone, and it's all Photoshop bullshit, and it sets an unrealistic standard. And the fact is, though, that these same social media platforms are the ones pushing on a body positivity movement as well, so you can get the same exact amount of pushback from them as well because they're open. We have an ability right now to get online and debate with 6 other people all over the United States, when before all we'd have is the people down the street at the club. The fact that we have so much at our fingertips right now, saying that it's in any overall bad for society or bad or harmful is just crazy to me, because you're focusing on tiny bad things when really we have the best we've ever fucking had it.
Right, I agree, but I also feel like it's not just social media. This is why I say that it's not just social media that's causing these issues, like what I said about people not living in reality and stuff like that. It's a combination of this stuff on social media and kind of a bit of an externality to kind of the profit motive, where it's what keeps people on a site the longest is not necessarily the best for them and all that. We can do that, but it's also a growing issue with lack of people being out in the world
also
being
people
in communities
aren't more informed today. They aren't.
Right.
We're just not more informed as a people, right? Even though we have all these resources at our fingertips, we're drowning in it, right? But we're not using it. We're not. We are
Humans
not.
aren't like
The
naturally
average
interested.
American, the
They
average
want to see what
person,
makes them interested.
at least in the West, I can't speak for other countries, right? I think that there could be an argument for the less developed nations and stuff that get access to social media, that it does have a lot of benefit being able to see outside of bubbles and things like that. But I think that at least in the West, the average Western citizen is just not more informed than they were 50 years ago.
What do we talk like when you?
It depends.
I can't agree with that.
I think there's an easier thing that you can say there, Wick, which is closer to the truth, is that we are just a disorganized group of people, period, especially in America. We're not politically organized. We're not socially organized. And even in the face of everything that's going on in the world, we're not activated to do these things. Like, think about it this way, right? We are on stream right now, right? Like there's what, 6 of us?
We
7
are,
of us?
and if you haven't liked the stream yet, I don't know what you're doing. Also, send me super chats, all that money. But yes, we're on stream. We're live. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then what happens at the end of this, right? We all go our separate ways, and then hundreds of us are back to where we were 2 hours prior
No,
to this.
the tracking algorithm that I've implanted into all of your feeds goes live, and I can track you and watch you whenever I like.
Well, no, my point is that like we're just like we are, because of our socialization, relatively isolated people. And even in the face of that, like I forget what someone called it, like existential dread or existential loneliness. Like instead of reaching out to social networks externally, we try to stay within our own conditions and just do it internally. So we end up on Discord, we end up on Twitter, we end up on Instagram and Reddit and all these places. And there's never like, some communities do this better than others, but when it comes to like the political Twitch sphere, I'll speak to that directly. They're all just a bunch of lonely, disengaged people. They don't do meetups of any type of substantive capacity. Like Wick, like you haven't met like unless outside of some type of political organizing, and like that was used as like a social club. Like PV is just a social club for liberals, and they used political organization and door knocking as a means to hang out with each other. When I think something that could be more valuable are people like, hey, like we're all part of this Discord. Like let's all do a Wix meetup and meet up somewhere with some centralized point.
Yeah,
right. But I'm saying like, right. But I'm saying like
canvassing stuff, right?
Yeah. My point here is that like we are a disorganized group of people, and anything that promotes that disorganization is going to be prioritized. I think one of the dangers of social media is that it keeps us disorganized. It gets us angry. It gets us mad at our conditions. It makes us be sort of semi-politically activated, but not enough to do things like go to a protest in a sustained capacity, advocate for strikes, advocate for workers within your own communities. Fucking vote. It doesn't do anything in terms of something that's like beyond just being on the internet. And I think that's a really dangerous thing that social media and the like promotes passively. And we just allow that to happen. I think one of the ways that we can resist that is to actively engage externally in your communities. Like being engaged. What's that?
Touch grass.
Unironically touch grass, yes. And I think that, and it's not only touching grass, it's like substantively touching grass, like actually engaging your community and the people around you.
I think one thing that I was about to say.
Gibbs have been wanting in, and we got to give Gibbs a chance. I understand. Gibbs, you have your hand up. You're a polite young man. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I would actually argue, I think social media is actually a good thing, right? We get the free exchange of ideas. We get on the ground news. We get to talk to each other and find like a middle ground. I'll use an example from last week. Like last week, Katusha and I found common ground that we liked free speech and we didn't like fascism. Hey, wow, it's crazy what you can figure out, right? I also don't see algorithms here as the inherent evil, right? Algorithms to me are self-inflicted wounds. They show you more of what you click on, right? Liberal Cluck commented in my Discord. He goes, I noticed you have a lot of news sources in your politics area that's like Yahoo News, right? And I explained partially the reason I use it is because they show the little pictures, right? But I also like it because the algorithm is something I feel like I've trained. It shows me the news I'm interested in. I like a lot of foreign policy. I want to see economic news. I want to see what the left is saying. I get to see so I've trained that algorithm on that one to show me stuff. My MSNBC one, not MSNBC, my MSN one, it shows me different news, right? And so I've trained all these to show me different things, and I like that, right? I think the algorithms are good. I think the real issue is this participation trophy mentality that is gone through and snuck its way through the left, and I mean to some extent the right. I really civilization in general here in America. I think that's the evil. People are so afraid to be put up with something that they don't like that they always click on what seems good. They're sensationalists in themselves. It's like them. They're making their own algorithm and they're making it show them only this. And I think that's scary. Like y'all mentioned, not wanting Elon Musk to talk about see his shit on his platform. Well, it's his platform. He owns it. Tough titties. If he wants you to see his message, he owns the platform. You should be able to see it. Sometimes taking a dose of seeing something you don't like is actually a good thing. I hate to break to you, but people just don't like their belief system being challenged, and I think that happens more on the left than the
I'm
right.
gonna DM you some pictures that you won't
sure.
like, and it's gonna be
baby,
good for you.
but I think it's something more on the left than the right because the right doesn't define themselves by their politics, while the left, your whole personality is.
Hold on! Whoa! Whoa! Hold on! Everyone, shut up! Everyone, shut up!
He's baiting you. Be careful.
Yeah, it's just
The right
I would rather not.
doesn't
Yeah.
define themselves by their
I would
politics.
say, yeah. So what I mean by that is politics for most righties is something that you bring out. Now, not me. Obviously, I care about politics a lot. But most righties are going to sit here. They're going to think about politics when it's midterms, local elections, or if we're lucky,
So my
or
point.
they're going to do it or whatever when it's whatever. But they're going to compartmentalize. And they're going to be like, I don't define myself as a conservative first. They're going to define themselves as a Christian first. They're going to define themselves as a football guy first. They're going to define themselves as an Oiler versus the left. They're going to be like, I'm a lib. I'm a, whatever this is this week. I'm a socialist. Oh, if you don't believe everything I believe about trans rights, fuck you. This is what I say. How many people are going to be mad at Christmas and Thanksgiving? They're literally going to be fighting and stuff over Thanksgiving. They're going to be like, oh, you voted for Trump. You're evil, Grandma. And Grandma's going to be like,
respectfully.
respectfully,
real quick. But respectfully, I agree with Gibbs here. I think the right is disengaged and apathetic to their conditions, so much so that they are politically manipulated by Republicans. And in the face of any type of revealing that Republicans are feeding them bullshit, they're resistant to that. They're resistant to that, so much so that they do those things that Wick describes.
But he
they
didn't
suppress
say that
conversations with their
Hold on. He didn't say that they're unengaged. I don't disagree with most Americans just in general are unengaged, right? I get you.
Yeah.
I believe you. That's not what he said. What he said
right.
is
No, I was saying not thinking about
is the right doesn't
Let's go for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What he said was the right doesn't define themselves by their politics, and that's just not true, right?
It is.
I'm a Christian
Which is no, but that's exactly
a gosh darn ton of the right has been saying my entire adult life.
But the thing that I think is important there, I'll try to be careful as I say this to not piss people off, is that Republicans don't see themselves as Republicans. They see themselves as the artifacts that make up republicanism in the right. Mm-hmm. That's an intentional activity. When in reality, they are political people. They are politically engaged people. And something that Gibbs is kind of knocking at, I want to see how he answers this question. How do you deal with disagreements? Let's say you are talking to someone who's ideologically in disagreement with you. How do you engage with that? And why should you engage with that?
On here or in person? Because obviously on here it's a lot different than you would do in person.
Why is that?
Well, because on here, most people are trying to push a certain point of view. It's a debate format, where you're sitting there arguing about things. Versus in person, and sometimes there's conversations to be had on these spaces. But usually people are pushing one narrative or another. In person, for example, I have friends of all beliefs and all kind of stuff. I was just talking to a trans individual this week, and she was basically saying all the same things as Wu said on Piers Morgan, and I was finding that interesting. That it was different than a terminally online person kind of thing. Had a conversation. I feel when I say the right doesn't define themselves by their politics, the right has other things going on, while the left makes politics their religion. This is what they are. They are this. And that's
how do you engage with disagreement? Was my question.
You just conversate or you debate them. That's your two
conversate. So when you mentioned that you do them differently on here, which I'm assuming is Discord and then offline, but that's not. I don't think that's. I don't see how. So you're suggesting that you're a different person online than you are
No, I'm
offline,
the
and how you
same
engage with
person.
different.
I mean, there's a difference between if you mean on here as in like on a show, or versus on here as in like, hey, I'm sitting here just having a conversation one on one with like, oh, random Bob in the back. Like, I mean, there's a whole different kind of thing. It's all like, come on, it's all
A
situational.
critique that
Are you saying it's
people,
not situational?
a critique that people gave me was the Joe Lewis that talked to them directly is different than the Joe Lewis that engaged with them in disagreement online. And I took that to heart. And something that I realized is that, yeah, like these spaces, these online spaces can create a person that is completely disaggregated from who you actually are. I think it's a little dangerous to
That's
suggest
not what I'm
that
saying.
I never said you were.
that too, though. Like
I never,
professionalism.
I just wanted to clarify. That's not what I'm saying at all.
that
I'm just
I
saying on
never
and offline.
suggested that you did. That's why I had a thought. I was trying to land it. So when like a thing that I am actively trying to do is to make sure I don't lean into those things that I allowed myself to be when I was in these online spaces, which is like overtly combative for the sake of being combative, toxic for the sake of being toxic. It's an ongoing activity. But I think like one of the dangers that you're kind of knocking at is that there are people who will talk in a different way online than they do offline. And then it's a sort of this guessing game of who am I actually speaking to in
But
conversation.
isn't that
That's
just
what I mean. That's a part of what I mean of like sort of the problems with
so?
this like
I'll give
open
you
discussion and
like
discourse.
here. I want Kariushi to go next because she's been waiting. But
Yeah.
I think that everyone does this and it's not bad. I act differently when I'm in a church than I do when I'm in my house. I act differently when I'm in a public setting than I am in a private setting. And that's because there are different etiquettes, there are different expectations, there's different ways of doing things and getting things across. There are more people involved. Like obviously, yes, if I am on a show, I am going to be different than if I am in private at my house. Does that mean I'm lying to you? No. Does that mean I'm being dishonest? No. It's simply a different way of presenting yourself and dealing with
Right.
things. I don't think that's wrong. I think that's
I'm
actually
not.
good. And I hate it when people, right, who like if you act like you do in your house when you go to the movie theater, you're probably a bad movie patron that I don't like, right?
I
I
understand
your
everyone.
phone in the
yeah,
theater.
I think you're not. Maybe I'm not being clear here. Is that I think that we need to be the most authentic version of ourselves possible, and when we put ourselves in different environments, that creates this idea that we have to engage differently. There's something totally different about levels of decorum, right? When you're in a church, like when I'm going to play, like I have a thing later tomorrow for Thanksgiving. When I'm in that church, I'm not saying nigga, I'm not cursing. There's a level of decorum and practice that you have to
That's the
engage with when
only
you're in those
time I
type of
say it, but go
spaces.
ahead. Yeah.
But at the same time, but like I say that to say is that I'm talking here specifically about what you believe, what you stand for, what you care about, and something that happens a lot of times in certain political disagreements, and right wingers are notorious for this, is that you will see disagreement of somebody that's more, we'll say, broadly non-right. So not really like a ideological direction, but just non-right in a particular way, and that disagreement enough can just shut things down. Like they'll just be like, we don't talk about politics at the table. We don't talk about like social issues here. When in reality they do. They have thoughts about social issues. They have thoughts about politics. But I think there's a level of awareness that right wingers have, especially, that they know somewhere that their rhetoric and ideas and their thoughts about the world are confrontational to those around them. And instead of revealing that to compromise their social circles, they keep it to themselves. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, there's also a lot of stuff with professionalism as far as like when we're talking about in the workplace and stuff like that. Because you could be like having a bunch of arguments when people are supposed to be working. Like at my job, it's always been the right wingers who just start talking about Trump at random, and they've done so like on work only Facebook groups, on work only group chats. And because I'm like I supervise about 80 people, because I'm like kind of like one of the people in charge in some of these spaces, I usually just say no partisan politics. But that's because I don't talk about it either, because I just find that to be kind of a different space. So I feel like there should be, some times where you're not being inauthentic. It's just really not the time and place for those types of
To
disagreements.
tie it into the larger discussion as a whole, I think this is partially right, and it's very small. I agree, it's a very small part of it. Why social media is changing social dynamics even in other areas, because we have it with us all the time. It's always there. It's always on. You have to work to get away from it, right? And whereas before social media might have been an escape from real life, now real life is in many ways an escape from social media. And I think that like it has driven people to, I feel okay kicking people out of my home who are talking crazy shit, okay?
Mhm.
I think that's perfectly acceptable. That's good, in fact. I don't know if the same can be said for when I'm on social media. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Can you give an example?
Sure. So, if I was in my home and I had a guest over and we were talking about politics and they started saying crazy shit about the Jews, okay, I would probably ask them to leave. I'd be
Start
like,
saying
you
that,
know
like,
what?
you know,
I'm not.
Zionists are trash.
No, more
you
like
know.
6 million
The
cookies.
state of
They
Israel
couldn't
should
even
not exist.
The
bake
space
that many,
lasers.
I
that many
have
cookies, right?
like
But-
Oh, that kind of crazy.
been
Gotcha,
on the
gotcha.
verge of kicking people out, for that
Yeah,
sort of
I would
thing. 'cause
probably
one
ask them
time,
to leave my
I was in that
house because it's my
situation.
house and I don't want that there. However, if I'm in social media in a different space, right, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for me to do that because it's there's different contexts and there's different levels there.
Do you not believe in the block button? Like, do you
I
not
don't.
believe you should be able to block
I
people?
think actually, I'm glad people have it, but personally, I would never use it, and I think that people using it, I think it's far too easy to just remove people from existence on social media. You can
I
simply
use it
never
either.
see them again. Never.
Oh, I mute.
You can
I
That's
mute.
true.
Mute's way more.
assume
Mute's
they
way
can
more.
go
I
on.
would, I would say,
And I think
it's
it's bad
necessary.
for
Hold on.
us.
I would
This
say
is why
it's
it's
no, no,
bad
no.
for us.
I would actually say it's necessary that we
Okay.
be able to
I
completely
understand.
remove people from existence because let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because it's
real
never
life.
been easier for shitty people to become get in your face as it is today.
It's never been easier to get them out of your face either. Right?
Yeah, I think it's
never been
necessary
easier.
that we
But
be
that's the
able to
thing.
do that on social
That's why
media.
this is, let me finish my thought, and now I want to hear your response, right? But
Okay.
it's become people because it's so easy, because it's just there. It's literally a button that you can press. People more and more often are defaulting to that rather than trying to figure out how they can actually come to some sort of working arrangement. Like before, you lived in a community and you had to get along. You had to get along or you had to move, one of the two. And moving was hard. So you had to figure out a way to live with your neighbors, okay? With the block button, you don't. You don't. You could just it's
Wait,
the easiest thing in the world. I think that's doing us harm. I want to hear Liberal Club's response and everyone else. Go ahead.
So I think that we still have to figure out how to get along with other people. My entire family is conservative, and I have to figure out how to not think they're shitty people.
Just cancel
anyway,
Thanksgiving and
that's a joke.
Christmas.
That's
a
a
lot of
joke.
people are doing it, right?
True.
But yeah, we still go to work. We still have people outside. We still see people in the grocery store. We still got to figure out how to get along with other people. I don't think that like having a block button on social media means that that's disappeared.
Like I said, I think the block button is necessary because there are instances like of abuse, harassment, etc.,
Harassment.
where you have to do it. But I think
Wait.
the because it's so easy to do, it's like I'll get here. It's great that we have such great access to food, high caloric content and things. That's a good thing. But because we have so much access to it, we're all getting fat. And that's bad. But I wouldn't want to remove food, right? That would be silly. But because of the ease that you can get really high calorie content stuff, really addictive, tasty, yummy foods, it has created some negative consequences. And this is what I'm talking about with the block button. It's created some negative consequences. And it's not just on social media. This isn't true in Discord, in any community. You can literally remove anyone you want, and it's easy to do. And again, it trains people, especially younger people, not to want to engage with each other, but to block each other. And that's bad.
I think
guess
it gives people
agree, but-
boundaries to what they believe is tolerable or not, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the things that people do online, to me, mirthfully, is they try to, like, just from instance of one thing I say, whether it be on a panel or something, and think that just because I am on the internet talking to people, then they have the right to have a discussion with me about X or Y thing. And they're like, you must debate me on this. You must do this. And a lot of times people feel like entitled. They feel entitled to your time and your energy. And I think it's important to have things like the block button and mute button to say, like, no, you're not entitled. Like, I don't owe you anything. Like, get out of here.
I'm not advocating for removal of the block button. I want to be very clear.
I
I
think
think
that-
it's good that we
I
have
think
it.
it's
I'm
more
just
than
thinking
just
it's
like
bad
political
that-
disagreements.
Anyway, go ahead, Katyusha. I'm sorry. I
I
didn't mean to
think
talk
that
over you.
a lot of people, why people, I think that people use the block button for kind of, reasons that put them in an echo chamber. And I don't agree with, I think people sometimes use it too liberally, but I think that there are situations that maybe we're not thinking as much about of like why a lot of people do, use the block button. Like I know a lot of other women use the block button a lot because there are creepy people, because there are people who are making like R-word threats like in Twitter. And I mean, if you
Retarded threats, yes.
I wish, but because you can open your phone and say those things to people like just like that. I mean, I understand why they just want to boot those people out instead of having those people continue to look at their pictures, continue to,
he's not
leer it.
he's not advocating for getting rid of the block button. He's saying that the block button has problems, which is that instead of having to engage with people or figure out how to get along with them, we just block them. Which I would say that that's not a problem on social media at all. The problem we still interact with people in real life that we have to figure out how to get how to get along with. And if you're not, that's because you're on social media too much, and that's the problem.
Right.
With that being said, I know that Evercore was trying to get in with something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry,
I thought,
Evercore, because you don't
thank
have
you.
a camera, it's hard to see like body language.
No, it's my fault. I should have double checked my camera stuff. I apologize, everyone. It's kind of like Katyusha says. I think we might be an echo chamber, unique echo chamber of people who care enough about discourse and politics and convincing things to go in a debate show. The average person who uses any social media, is not it's not talking about that. They don't see it as, oh, how am I going to express my political viewpoint today? And I think the block button and ability to block or curate their feed, I would say an argument against X is if it allows too many people. For example, let's say you have an interracial couple, right? They just show pictures of their vacation. And social media they have more sites than average of people being mean to them, saying, oh, you're diluting your bloodline. They're not going to think of political debates, that couple. They're just going to say, screw these guys, and block. I think that's how the vast majority of people who see the block button, they don't see it as oh, it's my job to change their mind. Even with all the stuff of Elon did,
let's look at Bluesky. Hold on. Well, we have, I can't speak for Twitter. I don't think they track these things, or I haven't been able to figure out a way to track these things. But on Bluesky they do, or at least this one app does. Was Brianna Wu going around telling interracial couples that they were diluting their bloodline? I mean, maybe, right? Was Brianna Wu making rape threats?
Well,
maybe, right? I don't know. But hold on.
respectfully,
If I may finish my
More
point here,
famous,
if I may
too, so
finish my
people might
point
go
here,
out
then I
of their
want
way
to
to
hear from
find
both of you.
out, right?
Let me finish my point, then you can both talk, right?
Okay.
Yes, I'm okay with the block button being used in those cases, but it seems to me that the most people are using it are not for that. At least from the metric, as small as they are, that we have. The block button is not being used for that. It's being used for something else.
That's kind of, I'll just be blunt. That's a bad argument, Wick. I mean, Brianna Wu's famous. More people know her, so of course they're going to find her and preemptively block her before a lot of people even say anything, because she might say, I don't like Brianna Wu because what he said here, I'm going to go out of my way to block her. While random troll number 63, who's constantly insults people, he's not a huge figure. So saying that oh, look at the most amount, just because you pick one person who is somewhat known and say, oh, that person's now the most blocked person, that means most people block for that reason, I think that's kind of a bad argument, honestly.
I think that I'll go for it. Sorry.
I just want to offer Wick a little bit of resolve because you're not advocating for getting rid of the block button. So I would say that what you're facing is a personality thing. Because like you made the comparison to your home, where it was brought up a lot when this was discussed in Congress, the House, and the Senate. Twitter's more of a town square, or think of it like an establishment. You could always kick somebody out of your bar or country club for saying something foul that offended somebody there. It'd be more similar to that than kicking them out of your personal home space. That being said, like, these people always exist, and since you're not advocating for actually getting rid of these mechanisms, all that's left is basically let them learn their lesson of socially isolating themselves in a bubble, and then Trump wins the election and they don't know how the hell it happened because they're so removed from reality that they just couldn't see it coming like a lot of people could.
It
So
was stolen.
yeah. That being said, like, it's their own fault. They're going to reap the consequences of it. And at the end of the day,
We aren't so disconnected, though. It's not just them that's going to reap the consequences. It's everyone. We're connected in a way like.
No, we're not.
I think we are.
This is Cope. But go ahead.
If half the country is experiencing something like devastating or that isn't in touch with reality, it has ripple effects. They don't just live in an island, right? They didn't just fall out of a coconut tree, right? No, they're connected. We're all connected, and we have relationships. At least most of us, maybe not a couple of you, right? But we have relationships outside of this space that it absolutely affects. So yes, I think that it's not just them learning their lesson. It's going to be society and culture as a whole that will suffer because of this. $10 from Zephyr Hash for a little cheerleader gift. Thank you for that. $10 is very nice. $20 from Lawson Harrison says, guys, don't block Random Troll 69. That's me. Well, thank you for the $20. But yeah, I have muted a few people, but I don't block.
Yeah, I think like my thing is, which is why I asked Gibbs this question, because I think it kind of reveals the truth of the matter, is we don't know how to, one, set boundaries for ourselves in conversation, two, have a normative ground of things that we care about and are actually passionate about, and three, we just don't know how to engage with disagreement when it comes to those normative grounds. So for me, I don't see any value in debating with right wingers. I'll gladly talk to them about things, but I'm not going to debate them about shit. I think it's irrelevant and a waste of my time. However, there is something to be said about, yeah, like you still need to understand where these people are coming from. That's why when I talk to these people, I just want to know, like, okay, why do you see these things this particular way? Like I ask more questions than I do actually make certain assertions, because I think that's how you handle disagreement. Like if I'm in the situation where I'm disagreeing with some libertarian on some fucking parental rights bullshit, I'm not gonna like then just like plant my feet into the ground and be like, well, this is my position. It's like, no, like let me open up to try to understand what they're saying, absorb what they're saying, and then that's that. But something that happens online especially is that even my style of engaging with that is against how we deal with these things. It's like on the internet, we're looking for champions. We're looking for winners and losers. And the idea of having like a sort of like an open-ended sort of discussion about, okay, why do you see this thing a particular way is really counterproductive to the algorithm that drives negative content, that drives drama, that drives competition. I think collaborative conversation is very important, but I think people misinterpret collaborative conversation as debate, and debate is collaborative competition. I think it's like really, really toxic. That's just me.
Can I say something about the algorithm? And kind of responding to Gibbs.
But I do want to hear from Gibbs a little bit, but I
go
also
ahead.
have another question. But no, yes, go ahead.
Well, if Gibbs wants to go, he can go.
No, you
If
can
it's
go. I
directly-
get it. Okay, stop.
All right.
I'm the moderator. I said you go.
Yes.
You go.
All right. Gibbs. You when you were going off about the algorithm, how you don't think it's a bad thing. You made 2 points that I think kind of go with what we were saying, that the algorithm is actually probably overall doing harm. And that was one, that it is giving people what they want. It's giving people what they click on. And two, people don't want to engage in things that disagree with them. And I think that is those two facts means that an algorithm that is designed the way it is what's causing the echo chambers that we have today. and I think it's overall harmful.
Well, I agree. I agree with some of that. It is harmful. I think it can be harmful. Any kind of thing can be harmful. Like, if you go hit somebody in the head with a hoe, then yeah, it's also harmful, even though it can be a tool. Like, anything's bad, right? Like, can be bad. The way I'm looking at this, is that there's a culture that has pervaded America, and maybe social media has like helped this go faster. Maybe it's been a catalyst, but it's not the root problem, which I think is the participation trophy mentality, that everybody's a winner mentality. That's the bigger problem. Because yeah, they are going to click on the things because they have too delicate feelings to actually sit down and deal with stuff. And that's the bigger problem. So the algorithm absolutely will do that. And I think that unless we somehow change the culture, yeah, this problem's gonna get worse, but that's not gonna matter because Evercore said, social media is mirroring mainstream media to this in some extent. And so people are responding more to sensationalism. They're gonna give more sensationalism. That's just the facts, maybe. It sucks, but that's the way it is until the culture changes. As for what Joe was saying, yeah, I think I'm rich with the idea that things aren't situational. Just for excess, for here, for example, right? Like, there's a reason that everybody watches Wick. There's a reason why people watch me. There's a reason people watch Destiny. And you can argue whether or not it's for intro or what the root cause is, but there's a reason why David Attenborough is real good for National Geographic or whatever, or BBC. There's a reason why he's good. It's because it's infotainment. You're going to want to listen to the ones that say stuff to you in the manner that you enjoy the most, whether it be humor, whether it be straight fact, whether it be whatever. So in these kinds of situations, yeah, it's absolutely different. And it's not necessarily toxic, but it's absolutely a different situation than say I'm with Nana on Thanksgiving with my liberal cousin. Maybe we don't bring up issues that are gonna be hard to them. Instead, we play some domino, or I don't know, maybe instead on the holidays it's about family and it's not about politics. I mean, it's situationally different. If I'm at work, if you're talking about politics and I catch you talking about politics while you're working for me, I'm gonna chew you out because motherfucker, you're costing me goddamn money, bro. What do you? I'm not saying it's like when I was working in a restaurant, the manager would say, "Hey, if you got time to talk, you got time to clean." So you get the same kind of concept. Like, we don't have time to talk about Trump. We don't have time to talk about Kamala. Like, it's time to do some fucking work and make me some green. I think it's all situational. And I reject this idea that, it's toxic to have debate. Oh, it's toxic to act different in different situations. Like, I'm going to also deal with a friend of mine who's maybe saved my life a lot more delicately on an issue that I want them to understand where I'm coming from. And it's this place of not hate, as opposed to hey, I'm sitting here trying to shout my beliefs in a 2-second paragraph online. I think it's totally bullshit to sit here and try to frame it that way.
I think it's challenging to engage with you sometimes because I'll say something that's generally not that disagreeable, but then you'll obfuscate it into something that I never said. So I'll say it again. The concern that I have is that people enter into competitive conversations looking for winners and losers, especially in the political landscape. Is that something that you agree with or disagree with?
I agree with that. Yeah, that's why I said infotainment.
Okay. Gotcha. So I think that we should change the culture to encourage more collaborative conversations. Is that something that you agree with?
I think that that can be good. I think there's an audience for that. There's an audience for the
Will
other.
it make me more money or less
That's the
money?
question. That's the question I want
Right.
answered. You tell me which makes me more money, and I'll do whatever.
That's why it's a
That's-
cultural
And
problem.
I say
The
that
problem.
because that's
Makes
how
more
everyone
money.
like here's the thing. Like I'm with you. I think it's healthier to have collaborative discussion. But the obstacle to that, and I'm pointing out the obstacle, is that that's not what people want. That's not what makes people money.
Okay. And
Right.
why is trying to broaden people's capacity of understanding the world around them politically, socially, and culturally about profit drives? Like, why should we care about how much money we make in the quest of trying to be more collaborative when we discuss with each other?
People love money.
Why should that be the drive?
I don't think it should. No, you're
Yeah,
right.
okay, go
It
ahead.
shouldn't.
There we go.
But it is because people love money. People don't
And we
do
have to
what's
deal with
best
that.
Require
for
money
them,
to
right?
live.
Well,
And-
on social media, money is proxy for views, right?
That's true.
Sure.
Clout. People
I mean,
will give
like,
up money for clout, actually, right?
Yeah, I absolutely would. I've been comfortable in a position. The reason I stream is partially was for the one, I enjoy it. I think it's fun, and partially one of the reasons I moved from Halo to politics was to sit here and go, hey, let me sit here and talk to like about getting my positions out. I want my positions out there. I want people to listen to my bullshit. The money from it's not that much because like whatever, it's Twitch. But like, hey, now I have a platform. Now I come in here and can discuss things. I can debate. Like I don't need the money from Twitch as much. So there's a lot of reasons why you would want this, and money is equivalent to views in this case.
I don't really agree with this idea. I want to take money out of these things personally. That's my personal goal. And I think something that you mentioned in terms of like trying to actively change the culture.
I have a question on that after you finish your point, but finish your
yeah,
point,
and I
then I
think
have a
that
question on that. Go ahead.
yeah, and I think like for me at least, I think that we need to prioritize understanding each other, understanding how our bodies respond to disagreement, engaging with that properly, and then expanding that into other areas of activity where you can have a conversation about politics with somebody at your job and not have it inhibit your ability to work with them. Like there's still common goals in the workplace, but that doesn't mean that politics should be an inhibitor to that goal. And I think that currently, yeah, I'd agree that the way that we discuss things and the way we deal with disagreement is dangerous. Like the debate culture that's been facilitated online is not a sustainable thing if we're trying to have a better communication and articulation of ideas and beliefs. That's all I'm trying to say.
Sure. I think that there's a couple points actually I want to make here. The first to question on you want to take money out of these things. Are you talking about things like this, political discourse online?
All of it. I think that like for me, right, I want to have more collaborative conversations with people and just exploring different ideas and concepts. I understand that people want competitiveness when they look for these discussions. They won't find it if you see me post that type of content. So I'm not in this thinking that, oh, I'm going to make money off of this. And because if I enter into that idea that I want to make money off of this, then I'm going to have to enter into that competitive environment. I'm gonna have to be the competitive, angry Negro that yells at people. I have to be more like Fanatic than a Glenn Lowry.
Well, that's my strategy to be exactly like Fanatic, and that's how I make my money. No, but I agree and I disagree. Right?
Sure.
Let me kind of explain. I know that's a kind of a contradictory statement, and there's some tension there, but I think it's worth exploring. I think with social media and these spaces in general, I don't think it's a bad thing that people are able to say, hey, I enjoy what you do. I like how you do it, and I'm going to throw you a little cash because I appreciate your content. I think it's good. Or if I give some incentives, like I'll read off their super chat on screen on live TV in front of tens of viewers, right? If they give me money. And I think that's perfectly okay for people to do. I wouldn't want to take that away from people. Why would I, right? That said, I do think you're correct when you mentioned that it does create some bad outcome. There are some negative consequences to that we have to wrestle with. I think that it does turn people into chasing a buck, right? And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But if you're looking for genuineness, it can get in the way of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I'll give an example. And I hate to use this person, but one of the dangers that Destiny runs into is that because of the nature of how he has discussions and because of the nature of how he debates online, there's always going to need to be a new a new challenger in order for his content to move forward. And I'm speaking specifically about conversation, like the debates and conversations that he has. And the concern that I have for individuals like the Destinies of the world, the Dean Withers, he's a TikToker who's been emerging as of recently. Those people will always be in a quest for a new champion to help drive the revenue, because that's the only thing that's actually sustaining those conversations. It's not the actual conversation itself. It's the fact that there's a new challenger towards these ideas, towards this thing.
Novelty.
And then it creates this situation where people like that for the entertainment aspect and not necessarily for the aspect of trying to broaden their horizon in terms of understanding. That's why when you look historically at some of Destiny's most unattractive content are those individuals who just sit and talk to him about something where it's not a debate, it's not a competition, it's just them vibing for a couple hours, and you'll see his chat freaking the fuck out. Like, this is boring. Let's do something else. And that's
But
a
he does
dangerous
do that.
thing.
But doesn't
Right.
that kind of
He does
so first
do
of all,
it, though.
$2 for the Trib, and then I want to get other people in the conversation. Yes, the Trib one says, disagree with this dono, evil imp smiley face, MAGA sucks. Thank you for the $2.
Well,
Bro.
But
So,
before
I
we go,
mean-
just to address that, like I think Destiny at least.
And he's a
I've
unique
had-
example. I want to
I've
make
had
that
a lot of
incredibly
talks
clear.
with Destiny. No, Destiny's
Right.
fine, right? I disagree with him sometimes. I agree with him sometimes. But Destiny will come on my show even though it makes him no money.
Well, he's in need the money, right?
I mean,
like
well, that's,
he
that's
he also
the
made
thing.
it very clear that like he will talk to anyone.
Yes.
But because of the nature of how he discusses things, he has to do that. It's the same thing with the Dean Withers of the world. Dean
Destiny-
Withers, who's that Democratic.
Destiny-
Look, I'm going to stand Destiny for a second. He has a whole show called Bridges where he simply just sits there and talks to somebody. Like, I mean,
Right, because the content needs to be, because it's not his core content, it has to be disaggregated from the main thing that he does, which is my
it's not
point.
Or content that gets posted and like kind of gets like, the most traction. But I feel like, I mean, he does, when there's a stale topic or whatever, I mean, then he usually starts researching another topic, and I'm going to be a Destiny dick rider for a little while. And I mean, always, DGG, no, but actually, like, I mean, and he kind of delves into a new topic, right? And then debates people on that new topic. And
Sure.
the research streams, people often think those are boring as fuck. I
Right.
mean, but he still does them anyways. And, I mean, if he never does World War I research, I will never forgive him. But, it's interesting either way.
Well,
So let me-
my point's the point that I'm trying to
do
make is
wanna
getting a
make
little
sure this doesn't become a
obfuscated.
Destiny debate. by the way.
Right. My point's getting a little obfuscated here. My point here is that the champion debate discourse, the idea that you need to enter into competitive conversations, and competitive conversations are what drive your content and revenue, that's the thing I have trouble with. Where this is why I look at the more like the Democratic TikTok simps who were all riding for Kamala, like scissoring and dick grinding her like to no end. They're a problem, because the only way that they actually get more people watching what they do is to get more champions. And for the longest time for them, their champions were just civilians, dumb right-wing civilians on TikTok. And then when that wasn't sustainable, then all of a sudden you see them on Jubilee. Like, because the only way they can even get into the same room with Ben Shapiro and others, despite the fact that they have millions of followers on the platform, is to use these backdoor channels to end up with them. And again, that's just a new champion for them to make money. They're not looking to understand Ben Shapiro ideologically through his views. They just want them, in this case, the deans of the world, to look superior to the Ben Shapiros, so it justifies people giving them money and being on their content.
I think a bigger problem.
think
Let me
that's
jump
a
in here.
good
Hold on.
driver of
All right,
that.
Tyler hasn't talked, so let him
I've
talk.
been waiting for a minute.
Hold
to
on,
jump in.
live. Liberal Cluck, I understand that you have big opinions on who should talk next and who shouldn't talk next.
Yeah, you're the
person that
host. I'm
gets to
sorry.
decide
I
who
apologize.
talks,
I apologize.
okay?
I apologize. I
Okay,
apologize.
Just making it clear. Go ahead, Tyler.
All right. So Joe Lewis does have a lot of good points he's hitting on here. Again, for like the 8th time, I feel like, because you keep hitting on a lot of really good real world. Like, that's not how you talk to people. You're absolutely 100% right. Debating somebody is not how you learn something. It's how you learn how to argue against it. People talking about the algorithm. It's been so long since I talked. I'm going to just hit on this briefly. The algorithm on these social media websites is tailored to what you engage with. And you can I muted this account yesterday, but it's the fact that you engaged with it for 6 months before you muted it that set up the algorithmic changes that you're seeing. Like, my Twitter timeline is fucking fantastic. I got a good split of like really honest left-wing, right-wing reporters bringing me different perspectives. I have polling out the ass, and then I have people that I engage with on these debates. I love it. It's fantastic to sign into. So it really just, it's like cultivating a garden. You have to put that effort into it. So then going into the toxic debate thing that Joe Lewis is talking about here, you're 100% right. When I notice people like that, I stop engaging with them. I don't care if it's going to hurt my views and never go on Destiny's program. The fact that I've seen him be a straight up worse than anybody in modern politics demagogue against conservatives on multiple different occasions.
Worse than
To me-
Josiah?
No, Josiah is super charming and nice. That one time he did say that he would do away with the whole Republican Party because there's enough diversity in the Democrat Party. It was stupid, but he's such a nice guy.
Crazy work.
Yeah. So with that being said, like calling an entire political movement retarded, for instance, like this is like everybody has potentially a unique reason why they support Trump. Granted, most of them really practically don't, but everyone has that unique perspective. And just to summarize it all in that demagogical way, to me shows like this person is not worthy of the time, even if they're not being toxic in this moment over here. They've exposed themselves as
Hold
to who
up.
they are.
I don't believe you. I think that if I reached out to Destiny and said I can get you and Destiny in a room and talk together, you would jump at that chance.
Depends.
Yeah, you would. You'd come.
It would be fun at least.
You come, all right.
It would be fun.
Yeah,
'cause it'd be-
yeah, you come.
There's more of a
You don't
different.
have to say it like that.
You're
I just
right.
like you made this whole speech about how
Listen, if
terrible
people
he
pass
was,
the
but
ball,
I
I'll shoot,
guarantee
okay?
you,
You're right.
I
Because
will
that
if I
would be
said
a
because I
factor.
know you, Tyler. If I
The
set up a
fact-
debate,
You're
you
right,
would
because
show up.
there's a whole nother part of me that would like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, let's get in there and rip shit.
That's that dog.
Do it. Do
But
it.
the
That's
reason
how
I
it
bring
makes you
this
wanna
up-
come.
The reason I'm saying this is because you just get this whole speech about how terrible Destiny is, and I want to tie that into the social media ecosphere, right? The ecosphere, I should say. And I think Joe Lewis touched on this, right? There is incentives in the social media space to do things such as that you would otherwise not do.
I was just picking on him in particular because he was already brought up.
Yeah.
Just anyone
Yeah.
that like is that level of toxic, we have to start punishing them for it, even if they have.
What do you mean by punish?
Like exclude them from things? Hey man, what you said about this group of people, I don't agree with them politically, but you went too far and
Let's
legally
cancel
damaged
them. Cancel them.
Just-
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it comes. I think what
Very
Ty is
Dump it
bringing up too
right
is that
out.
like
Goodbye.
like for me, right? I have a pretty extensive like I'm not talking to this person ever again list. I don't disclose it to the public, but there's people who aren't on that list. Like Gothics is one of those people where I felt that hey, I can have an ordinary, for her standards, conversation with her, and we're not having a debate. Because again, my quest is to have collaborative conversations, and there are people, and unfortunately, Destiny. And again, I don't want to like make this into a Destiny thing, but it's just that like based on the way he's interacted with other people, I don't want to be participating in the facilitating of that type of conversational culture. Where if it was just something like, hey, I'm on put Joe Lewis on Bridges, fine. I understand the environment going in there, but put Joe Lewis in his Discord at 2 PM, probably not going to be my vibe, nor anybody wants to like that. But again, like that's a thing that I think Ty's knocking at, where I think that I mean, I'll just speak for myself here. I deeply disagree with the platforming and the continual platforming of what debate culture is believed to be. Like, I think Jubilee is a disgusting platform and irresponsible with how they do these things. And it drives the fact that people don't actually agree with each other. And then they use controversial figures like that person who wants to be a black person, but doesn't know anything about black people, Myron Gaines, where he'll just overtly just be confrontational in a conversation.
Okay.
And people are being very vulnerable and open about their ideas, but he just says some toxic things just to be toxic. And even the moderator doesn't know what to do.
So I think that there's definitely a place for debate. And I'll give you an example. Somebody had a conversation with Ben Shapiro, and he basically and it was a cordial conversation. It was two people disagreed with each other, cordial conversation. He basically admitted that he grades Trump on a curve.
Destiny.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say his name because it triggers like it starts a Destiny
I'm aware of the
conversation.
conversation.
Anyways, yeah. So he basically admitted that he grades Trump on the curve, and if that was a debate, then Ben Shapiro should have been embarrassed by that. And in a debate format, that's the only way you can do that. And I think that people who say stupid shit like that should be embarrassed over it, but they're just not.
Can I ask Joe a question? Like, do you think debates are bad all the time?
No. The problem I have is the overvaluing of that. Where Jubilee, as an example, I'll use them because they're just an easy target here. Where they'll have the 20v1 series. They call it Cornered. I think that could have been something very interesting, but they overtly injected it with overtly toxic individuals and e-celebs. So you have a bunch of people who are otherwise civilians in a room full of e-celebs, and the civilians have no idea they're next to people with millions of followers on their platform. And I think that's a disgusting, irresponsible way of engaging with that.
Is it just the fact that they don't know that it's true? Because I'll admit something, and maybe you will like me less because of this, but I actively work to try to put big names with smaller names on my show because I think it's interesting to see the interaction and the interplay between the two, and I think that it gives the littles get a chance to talk to the bigs that they otherwise wouldn't, and the bigs get a chance to hear the perspectives of the littles that they would otherwise ignore. I think it's just good
but
overall.
Wick, you're not telling these people to fly out to California on their own dime to have a conversation, right?
Just get on Discord.
But would he if he could?
Look, if you gave me money to have an in-person studio, I would do in-person shows. Yes.
Yeah.
Again, Jubilee doesn't pay these people. They just say, "Hey, do you want to come and be on this thing and have a thing?" And it's like
they get paid in exposure.
Yeah, they get paid in exposure, but some of these people are civilians. That's my problem here. Where it's we're not trying.
People going on Jubilee don't know who they're going against.
Yes, they don't.
Is that an established thing? Because I feel like people are going on Jubilee to go against somebody they know.
Yeah,
they don't know the way that they do it, because a bunch of different creators alluded to the idea. The larger creators have a general idea of what other larger creators will be there, but people who don't have social media presence are not privy to that. So if you have a small presence, for example, there was one about the they called it fit versus fat. The creators on the fat side, quote unquote, had no idea that Myron Gaines was going to be there. And they found that out when they were getting briefed on set. So it's do I, and he's and this guy's I spent money to come here. So do I just look at this and then just leave because of Myron Gaines? Or do I bring up a complaint of that? There's also a situation where there was an inmate, it was inmates versus cops, some nonsense, where the question was skewed in such a way where it basically said that inmates don't deserve rights, and the guy just tapped out. He's I don't want to do this anymore. I think that the way that we can have collaborative conversations needs to be better. And I think Jubilee is a failure of that. It's a failure of that.
I don't watch enough of Jubilee to be able to speak to it, honestly. $20, Lawson Harrison, who is the champion of free speech, to give me money like this. Shouldn't the first step be to investigate on whether or not the group being attacked is deserving of said attack? Destiny's primary gripe is that conservatives are generally unwilling to go through scrutiny. Again, thank you for the $20, but
The standards.
I don't want to make this into a Destiny bad versus Destiny good debate. We're not here for that.
We should have that debate.
People, but wait, people have a hard time. People have a hard time with disagreements, and sometimes people don't even think about their perspectives until they actually are asked the question. That's the shit that drives me nuts in your Discord, as an example, where it's you'll have people will enter into a conversation, and they'll have a vague idea of something, and then they'll just say that vague idea. And the problem is that some people don't know how to engage with that type of thing.
You actually bring up a good point here, Joe. I can think of an example that's happened in Wick's Discord this week, is when they were talking about illegal immigration, and they brought up agriculture, and it's ironic because all the people in the mom and pops level, all the non-corporation people, they're all super pro the deportation and building the wall and stuff, and the response I got was, "Oh, well, that just means they're uninformed." And it's well, it's kind of funny here. I guess you're saying all of these people who own $1 million ranches or multi-million-dollar ranches, I guess they're just all ill-informed. But economically, they don't know what's going to happen. It was hilarious to me. They take a little bit of what is it, Dunner-Kruging? That's what we're getting right there.
I think the issue is that people have people have ideas.
You know what I'm talking about.
People have ideas and thoughts about particular things, but a problem that people have, and this is kind of what I'm trying to say here, is that they don't necessarily know how to articulate the thing they're observing or how it makes them feel. And then what happens is online is that nobody, like, since we're so like obsessed with this idea of good and bad faith actors, there are people who generally have no idea about how tariffs work. And they just had an idea of how tariffs work on from the news media and generally, and they just think like, hey, you know, when Trump says this thing, like it seems like it's a good thing because he's saying it, and then you'll get like a liberal or the like just like jumping down their throat of a person who's just like, hey, I have no idea what this is, and you keep calling me stupid, but it doesn't help me in knowing what this thing is, and like this is what I'm seeing, and because of what I'm seeing, this is why I think this is okay.
Well, yeah, I agree with you on this.
Yeah.
That we are too quick to demonize the other side. I'm 100% with you on that. But I think that like one of the ways that you learn, right, or at least I'll speak for me. I can only speak for me. Like you jump in and you learn, right? That's how I learn, by doing. I learn by getting my hands dirty. I learn by messing up, by making mistakes, by making stupid statements and getting corrected. That's how I learn, right? And so I think that's a good thing to offer a place where people can come on if they wish to try it, and if they either fly or they fall, and if they fall, well, hopefully they learn something about it, right? They learned how to do better next time. I think that that's a perfectly acceptable thing. I don't think that's bad. I think that's good, in fact.
But it infuriates me that people who don't know what tariffs are is voting for a guy who makes it a part of his platform. But you know, I think I'm allowed to be angry about that. Anyways.
Well, how
Well, it's
are
like-
you gonna? What are
it's-
you gonna do when you're angry?
Well, I mean, like to you, Wick, right? Like the thing that I try to do when you say some shit, because sometimes you say some shit, and I'm like, damn, you be saying some shit. But instead, I try. I mean, again, I'm way better about this now than I was like maybe a few years ago, where it's like I'm again like I want to be part of the culture that I want to see. So it's like I think it's more productive in a lot of those cases to ask more questions than it is to provide certain assertions. And then maybe within those questions, there's like a gentle push here, a gentle push there, because there are some people who are misinformed or misguided just because of how they've engaged with content. And then there's other people who just generally are dishonest people. And it's hard to sort of like tell the difference sometimes online, especially online, I would say.
What you're saying is probably true on like the individual normie level, but I think that if you're talking to somebody who's like big and has an audience and has been grifting, then it's probably useful to embarrass him in
Hold
a
on,
debate.
Liberal, what does grifting mean?
It means that you're just saying things that you don't actually believe or can't actually believe. They could just be idiots, but I'm going to give them benefit of doubt and say they're grifting.
Interesting. Okay, gang. I want to respect everyone's time. I know Thanksgiving's coming up. I know we all got turkey plans, right? I hope you do. You know, they're not going to be a stream tomorrow because I'm going to be spending time with like people in real life, touching grass, eating turkey, things like that. On Friday, I will be going on Admiral Gibbs' show to talk about tariffs. His show has been named, what was it? Give Me a Break. So
Thanksgiving or whatever.
don't
The
usually
Thanksgiving tariff throwdown.
I
yeah.
don't usually
good name.
get a chance
I think
to
that's fun.
enter the arena, but I am going to be doing the debates myself instead of moderating. So tune in if you'd like to see that. Other than that, next week we are going to have a debate on deportation and Trump's immigration plan. That was a heavy topic in my Discord the other day, and it drew a lot of eyeballs.
It's every day. What are you talking about?
Look, there was like 30 people in a VC all yelling at each other about it, so I knew it was going to be good
agriculture.
content.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
How come
and-
I wasn't invited? I was one of the people
What do you mean
yelling.
invited? It was everyone just showed up. No one was invited. No one.
They were yelling at me. I was one of the
Yeah.
people on the other side.
Okay, I haven't
I got
extended
into it
invites
with
for the
Tyler.
show. I'm just saying the show's coming up. Can I just give my outro, please? I'll give you all a chance to give your outro. Let me tell people what I got coming up on my goddamn show without everyone trying to be like, I want on. I love their energy. I love the desire. But come on, just let me finish my goddamn sentence. Thank you for the membership, Solemn Arguments. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. I will, especially with your money. It will be great. I'll buy something with that cash that you just gave me. Okay, with that. If you enjoyed this content, if you like watching these kind of things, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. If you're on Twitch or on Kick, hit the follow button. You'll get notifications when I go live. It'll be great. Again, no stream tomorrow, stream Friday, stream next week sometime. We'll have a few of them. With that said, we're going to give each of these individuals, lovely individuals, a chance to give an outro, tell people where you can find them, as well as where they can find you, I should say, as well as like your closing thoughts on the subject at hand. I have links to all their like channels and Twitters and all that in my YouTube description, so just go in there and click it out if you'd like to see more of them. Let's start with Tyler, and we will let Katusha have the last word. So Tyler, go first, and then we'll.
Average debate enjoyer, Twitch, YouTube, all that fun stuff. That being said, I'm working on my magnum opus right now. It's going to be a 2-hour long video breaking down the election and lots of policy stuff. Pretty boring. I won't shut up about it when it comes out. Anyways, to the subject, I'm sorry. This is something I wasn't as engaged in as when I normally am when I come on here. I was kind of hanging out, just more listening to Joe speak, because he kind of said more of my points than I even knew I had before I came in here. So I think generally, though, still social media is a good thing. Let people kind of branch out and have their safe space. Twitter's going to bounce back once they get over the election loss. Everything will be all right. Friday night, I'll be on Gibbs as well. If anyone wants to see Wick get his debate career ended in the first night, I am very prepped for that debate. So see you there.
I'm just going to call you slurs and make fun of you the whole time. That's all. Keep telling you this, right? I don't know why you're doing research. But go check him out. Give him a follow. Thanks for being here. Gibbs, what you got?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun. Listen, free speech is good. We need more free speech. But that we should have free speech together. Don't run like a little bitch. Learn how to lose. It's good for you sometimes. And, that's basically my closing thoughts on that. You can find me as Admiral Gibbs everywhere. And these guys have hyped up the ship Friday enough already. I won't hit y'all a third in a row.
Okay, check him out. Joe Lewis, please.
Yeah, and I do think it's really cool to see Gibbs emerge from being sort of like a one follower Andy for a little bit, and now he's getting a pretty decent sizable audience into his spaces. I know right wingers are kind of algorithmically suppressed on Twitch, so I really hope that it continues. I think it's right. Like, as much as I want to fight y'all motherfuckers every day, I do think that you have the right to be able to like cultivate a platform if you think you need or want to, right? With that being said, I am Joe Lewis. I listen. Like, let these liberals cry for a little bit. It's gonna be a long, hard cry. They're starting to, they want to deport their neighbors. All this type of crazy shit. They're saying black people aren't black. So let them get through it for a little bit. They'll be okay. And then they'll go back to platforming Pete Buttigieg, whatever their next champion is. I disaggregated from Twitch, so I'm now on YouTube exclusively. So you can find me at Joe Lewis, just the way it sounds, JoeLewis. I just did a video that I just posted today, entitled "When Woke Fails and the Limitations of Sarah McBride Being an Establishment Democrat and Having Nothing to Do with Trans People," which is confusing a lot of trans people. So I did a little video of my piece on that. I also have some other videos up there. I try to post every day, but if that's something that interests you, feel free to go over there. I stream over there on YouTube as well. So either way, thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here. Check him out, gang, and give him a follow. Next up, Liberal Cluck.
Yeah, I'm Liberal Cluck. I'm just here to debate. You can find me in Wix Discord. You can send me a DM if you want to debate me about something. I think that we have a problem with echo chambers on social media, and to some extent also mainstream media. I think that the social media echo chambers are largely pushed by algorithms. I think it's a problem. It's allowing disinformation to go unchallenged. And I do not necessarily have a problem with a bunch of liberals leaving Twitter for Bluesky. I would prefer us to do that than to try to coup the government. But that's just my opinion.
Fair. Okay. Thanks for being here.
Woo.
Check him out if you want to find him. Apparently, you can DM him on Discord. Evercore, please.
Thank you guys. Great. This is the first time I've debated on a channel like this. So Wick, I'm not really a huge influencer. I'm Mercenary29 on Twitter and Bluesky. And I basically wrap it up. I think if Bluesky succeeds and gets people, free market, a big enough audience, and is successful just having people talk about things other than politics, it's fine. And if it doesn't, well, it'll be like what Tyler said, they'll just lose anyway. So I don't think it's a huge deal. I thank Wick for giving a pretty small random Twitter account chance to be here tonight. And I appreciate everyone was very nice debater and very civil. So I appreciate all that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. If people want to be on my show, it's not terribly hard. Just DM me and tell me the topics.
Apparently it is. I mean, people having
Look.
hard time yesterday.
Okay. Let's just say if you DM me, there's a bigger chance that you're going to get on my show than if you don't. If you just wish
There's a
for
level
it.
of technical literacy required.
Oh, yeah.
Wick is the
enter.
first bigger creator panel ever that actually had me, and he's not the first one I've tried.
Really? You never been on in Prime Kai's Burgers and Fries when he was netting 80 plus?
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, Wick doesn't. I will say on Wick, I do like that you mentioned this earlier, bringing the big people and the small people. It gets like a nice, interesting dynamic.
again,
it's like there's always somebody new.
Subs
It's
and
not
doms
unique
together in
to
the same
me.
room.
It's not something
Perfect
I've
harmony.
only done just
As they
me,
should be.
right? There are other games in town, and they
Doms
provide
suck.
interesting. Prime Kai is one of them, right? There's a few others.
Depends.
Lethe Water Kai, etc. That you should and could check out.
Unless you're Lunacat, apparently there's a big controversy there. I don't know what it's about.
Look, okay. I just think it's good to have options. Last but certainly not least, Katusha, go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree with Wick that it is good to have options, which is why, you know what, I think if people want to try their hand at, kind of doing their own thing, and having Bluesky or having another social media platform, I think that's good because, social media companies are first and foremost companies, and I am not a fan of monopolies. I like the free market, think it should be as free as possible, because even though I'm a dirty socialist, I am definitely a market socialist. But I digress. That and the fact that the algorithm has its problems socially, not that, it's bad or anything, like, inherently, but there's definitely arguments against it. But thank you so much for giving me the awkward last word. You can find me at Premier Katya on both Twitter, X, and also the libcuck website, Bluesky. So, yep. Nice talking to all of you. I know one of you or two of you I've never debated before. So, hi Liberal Cluck, hi Evercore. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. This is the first debate I ever had, so I'm pretty impressed if I somehow debate you before. But
thank you.
For
we're gonna raid out. We're gonna raid into Mooncake. Say hi to Mooncake. Tell her it's a hate raid. And I'll see you guys later. Happy Thanksgiving! Bye!
Have a good Thanksgiving. Take care, guys.
Thanksgiving.
Okay.
All right.
You're having me. It's all good.